or silence your cell phones. Good morning. You are attending the Animal Matters Commission hearings for January 8th, 2024. The Animal Matters Commission was established and is conducted in accordance with Article 12 of the Anne Arundel County Code. These are administrative hearings, and by nature they are informal, which means you are not hampered by rules of evidence. However, please be aware that you are still testifying under oath. Each party will have their opportunity to state their case. After each party states their case, they will have an opportunity to ask questions of the other party. Please do not interrupt the other party. You will be given ample time to talk. In many cases, we are aware that there is a history. You may briefly tell the commission about the history. However, please focus on the issue at hand. After each case, the commission will have open deliberations. During these deliberations, the public may not participate. If the commissioners have an additional question, you may answer that question. No further information will be heard, and a decision will be rendered. This decision is a recommendation to the chief of police or their representative. The recommendation of the commission will be taken into consideration, and a final decision will be made by the chief of police or their designated representative. If, as a defendant in the case, you are unhappy with the decision of the commission, you may appeal. For citation cases, appeals are made through the District Court of Maryland. For administrative orders, such as potentially dangerous, and vicious orders, appeals are made through the County Board of Appeals. Please call the first case.
Okay, the first case is Julianne Wupke versus Janice Hansen. All parties who have an interest in this case and wish to testify, please use the raise hand function so I can promote you to panelist. Once promoted, again, please refrain from speaking until I have everyone from the case promoted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. One moment while we're working on getting everyone.
Yeah, I was having difficulty logging in, so I was trying with two computers.
Aha, so the other one we do not have to worry about for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now that you are all in, I need everyone to please raise their right hand and keep your hand raised that is going to be testifying today. Make sure that we can see you. If you can please raise your right hand. Thank you. All right, I see two right hands there. Thanks for squishing together. Do you declare and affirm under penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I
do.
Okay.
Yes.
Next, we're going to go around and I'm going to make sure that everyone provides their name and address for the record. We're going to go ahead and start with you, Miss Wupke. And I apologize if I'm not saying your last name correctly.
It's okay. My name is Julianne Wupke. I live at 1484 Donham Market, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
Okay. And then Miss Hansen, which one of these are you on?
I'm not
There you
sure.
go.
My daughter's helping me, but she's under my name, Jennifer Nowell. So it's going to be, that's the two of us squished.
Okay,
Sorry.
Miss Hansen, if you want to go ahead first
You want me to go ahead first?
with your name and address, please.
Oh,
for the
okay.
record.
I'm Dr. Jan Hansen. I have two homes. One is 858 St. Edmunds Place in Annapolis, Maryland. And the second one is 32 Ross Avenue, Chestnut Ridge, New York, 10977.
Okay, and then Jen, are
My
you going to
daughter.
be speaking as well?
I may end up speaking, and I apologize. We have a little noisemaker here, and I apologize. It's not taking less of the gravity of the situation. I just had a baby, so I apologize. My name is
Name and address.
Jennifer Nowell, and I'm 23 Ross Avenue, Chestnut Ridge, New York, 10977 now.
Okay, and then it looks like I have a Colleen Kyle. If you can.
Yes,
please identify
Colleen
yourself.
Kyle. I live at 849 Coachway in Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
Okay, and then it looks like I have Mr. Adornato.
Very good job. My name is John Adornato. I live at 1582 Keswick Place in Annapolis.
Okay, did I miss anyone who plans to testify in regards to this case?
Fine.
Okay, I want to remind everyone to please use the mute function if and when you are not the party that is speaking.
Okay, then, we will begin. Ms. Welke, as the complainant in the case, you will go first and state the case, please.
Yes, if you don't mind, I actually kind of prepared just to help me to go through step by step. I might be reading a little bit from something to get my thoughts together. But on Wednesday, August the 2nd, I was walking my dog, Kai. He's a Welsh Springer Spaniel. We left the house about 7 a.m., which is pretty typical for us to walk the dog before I head off to work. We proceeded to Brookside Common, where the Downs Pool and Clubhouse is located. And we proceeded in our usual round of going down the street, up the parking lot, going over by the deck. He smells everything. We're coming down the driveway of the Downs Pool area, and we see a woman who turned out to be Jan Hansen at the end of Brookside Common with 2 dogs on leash, and then an older lab that was off leash that was near the entrance where we were. We walked around that dog, and she waved to me first. I waved to her, meaning to me it took that, don't worry, that dog's okay, the lab that was off leash. We walked around that dog and continued onto St. Edmund's Way. As we got to the very end of the cul-de-sac and we were returning, I saw Miss Hansen with 2 dogs on leash, and the lab was still off leash. She raised her hand to hold up as she tried to put the leash on the lab. She said she would move back towards Brookside Common, and I was on the other side of the street,
Yeah.
at least 50 feet away. I waited a while for her to try to do it. She was struggling to put the dogs together. And she, while she was trying to put the leash on the lab, one of the dogs, the other 2 dogs, got off leash and charged at my dog and started biting him on his rear behind and not releasing. I'd never seen anything like this before. It was totally unprovoked. My dog was on leash. We walk this dog all the time. I began to scream for help because I didn't know what to do. I couldn't get this dog off of my dog on the rear behind. He flipped my dog several times on the ground, and I tried kicking the dog off to release. And then we both got flipped on the ground with my head going back onto the street. And as I was trying to get up, the dog was starting to come back over to me, and I was trying to cover my face to prevent him from trying to attack me. The dog then released and then came back at my dog again, the rear behind, and not releasing. And it wasn't until some other neighbors came up that the dog finally released. Colleen Kyle, who's on the call, heard my screams from inside her home, which was a distance away in Coachway. I mean, I just didn't know what to do when you have a dog attacking and grabbing and throwing and flipping your dog and myself. And John Arnotto was taking his morning jog, like we often see him do, and he came to our rescue as well. Don Barker, who lives on the street, heard the screams as well and came out. And I think it was just his presence that kind of got the dog off. I took my dog immediately to our vet, and when they opened at 8 o'clock, and and he stayed there and was treated with stitches, multiple puncture wounds, and bruises. I was able to bring him home at approximately 4 p.m. after he was sedated for the day and with a bill for over $700 for our dog. He got stitches, and basically and he had to go through x-rays to make sure that there weren't any ribs that were broken. It was a very traumatic experience. Our vet, when I called her midday, Kim Cheney, advised me that it was required to report the incident to animal control. She stated that bites must be reported in the event the animal previously bit or injured or could in the future bite an animal or human being, that it needs to be on the record. I contacted animal control and provided details and contact that afternoon, who also instructed me to alert our neighborhood when I talked to the officer. I said, we have a Yahoo group, should we notify? And he said, definitely yes, because we don't know what this dog may do. I had an ice pack on my head for the rest of the day. I had scraped elbow, jammed nail and finger, and sore backside. As the head pain continued and my concentration was limited, I was unable to work for a couple days. I went to my doctor on the 8th of, excuse me, of August and was diagnosed with a concussion and was advised to rest, limit screen time, and stay calm for at least a week. I filed my formal complaint on the 10th of August when I was able to drive to get to animal control and first having to go to get the notarization. Since the filing of the complaint, Kai had an additional visit to our vet for stitches removal and a checkup. I had a doctor's appointment for concussion follow-up and have had to continue on anti-anxiety pills to try to sleep at night because I keep waking up with a reoccurring attack. And I'm taking additional high blood pressure medication due to the attack as well. The outpouring of concern from our neighborhood once they heard about the attack was overwhelming. Kids were making cards. People brought over toys, anything to comfort him. He's known in the neighborhood as the mayor. He's very friendly. He was totally unprovoked attack. This incident has made me reluctant to walk our dog in the neighborhood when I see other dogs. This has changed the dynamics of our walks, which oftentimes I would go up to 5 miles a day with that dog. Miss Hansen made the choice to walk 3 dogs, one of them off leash. As she tried to leash the loose lab, she allowed a dog to escape off and attack my dog. She did nothing as my dog was attacked and unprovoked and thrown to the ground, as was I. She didn't yell at the dog. She didn't tie the other dogs to a mailbox and come over to get her dog and to release him. She did nothing. Miss Hansen acted irresponsible by choosing not to do anything and allowing her dog to inflict injury on a domesticated animal per Anne Arundel County Article 12, Title 4-402, Public Safety Threat 3. The dog poses a public threat not only to our neighborhood, but to any neighborhood or any public place or even a private property owner, as it obviously has displayed that it'll just bolt out from its owner and attack. I respectfully request that Ms. Hansen be cited to be on the record for any future attacks and to take responsibility for her lack of control, action, and ability to contain a dog that proceeded to attack and cause harm to my dog and to me physically and mentally. I'm taking responsibility to report the incident to have it on record in the event of future attacks. And then finally, Ms. Hansen offered and then rescinded paying the vet bill and a portion of my medical bills until I signed a settlement agreement and mutual release that included contacting Animal Matters Commission to request the citation be dismissed. I can't ask for that to be dismissed. I can't live with myself if this dog attacked another dog, and I don't know if it ever attacked another one in the past. So I respectfully request that she be cited for that act. There are 2 neighbors, Ms. Colleen Kyle and Mr. John Arnado, that are also on that would have graciously offered to add some testimony. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll start with Ms. Kyle, and then we'll hear from Mr. Adornado. So, Ms. Kyle?
Yes, as Julie said, I live away from the corner, the intersection of the roads, and near the clubhouse, close enough that I can hear people playing in the pool and at the tennis court. I had my windows open that morning and heard loud barking and yelling, and my dogs started barking a little bit. I had walked them earlier in the morning. I have 2 dogs. And because, sometimes dogs get out, it's something that happens. So I figured maybe a dog was loose and was bothering another dog. So I grabbed a leash and I ran down my driveway. I don't even think I had shoes on, but I ran down the driveway, and I think that's where I encountered John, who was running. He was just at the top of the hill where my driveway was. And I said, that sounds bad. We should go see if we can help, right? And he said, yes. And he ran fast down the hill, and I kind of plopped along after him. And then when I got there, I saw Julie, who I had met. I'm new to the neighborhood, but I had met Julie a few times, and we both walk our dogs. And she was on the ground, and her dog was sort of trembling and shaken. And I didn't see the other dogs. They were already walking down the street back to the dead end where I think they live. And there's another neighbor there who was in a car, in a small blue car. I don't know his name. I think Julie mentioned it. And I think he was active in actually stopping the attack. But all I could say is that when I got there, Julie was on the ground next to the road, and her dog was trembling and clearly in pain. And I just saw if I could help. I didn't, my leash was not needed because the attack had just happened. But we just made sure that she felt okay. I asked her a few questions and helped her get up. And then we both said, you know, you really should go to the vet. It was hard to see with puncture wounds. You can't see like oozing blood, but clearly when the dog was very severely injured by the attack.
Okay, do you have anything else for us? Okay, we will then hear from Mr. Adornato.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I guess to add a couple of details, yes, on that morning, I was a pretty regular jogging route and was coming down the hill at Coachway towards St. Edmunds, towards the pool, right in front of Miss Kyle's house. And I started hearing some screaming, and I could tell that it was coming from around the corner at St. Edmunds. And these days, well, I'm not that young. I do know that these days people pull out their phones and start videotaping things. So I did pull out my phone because I had no idea what I was going to see or hear. And because I was clearly far enough away, there's another house in between where I was and where Julie was, that my video doesn't really show too much. But as Colleen said, that we talked to each other briefly and said we didn't know what was going on, but we would continue down. I ran down the hill, and as with Colleen, saw Julie sitting on the ground, clearly distressed, her dog clearly distressed. Don was standing in the street with his car there. I too didn't see the actual incident, but saw presumably Jan and the dogs walking at the end of the cul-de-sac. And just like Colleen said, we were trying to comfort Julie and the dog. And once that interaction happened and Julie came up and started walking home, I continued on my run. And as I came back up out of St. Edmunds, Jan was driving and asked me where Julie was, and I pointed down the end of the street as to where her house was. I continued on my run all the way down to the end of Coachway, which is a complete dead-end street. And as I was coming back, Jan again drove through and asked where was Julie, and I just said that I don't know where she is, or exactly which house it was. Indicated that I was on the board of the Downs community at that time, and was the Covenant's co-chair, or chair rather, and that we'd been reminding folks to keep their dogs on leashes, etc. So that was about the extent of my interaction, and I did write that up, have it notarized, and submitted it. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wilkie, do you have anything else to?
No, I just want to remind the commission of the photos that I had submitted that showed the bites on my dog. The vet report that did show that he was severely injured. I provided all of that as part of the testimony that I had provided as notarized as required. So obviously you can see this is like an unprovoked attack, and it's against the article of Anne Arundel County Code. And I believe that I respectfully request that she be cited for this injury that her dog caused to my dog. So thank you.
Thank you. Robin or anyone, do we have the pictures that can be brought up, or does the commission already have them? Does anybody on the commission need to see the pictures?
I'm good. I've been scrolling through them right
I
now.
see them in the file.
Okay, then that won't be necessary. Thank you. Are there any questions for testimony thus far from the commission? Okay, hearing none, then Ms. Hanson?
Excuse me, Ed.
Yes, go ahead.
Ed, I have one question, I guess, because I got a little bit late to the hearing, and my apologies. What is Jen Knowles' association with this? I'm not sure where she sits in the picture of things.
You're muted. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how to use this. This is hers. She is my daughter, but she is watching Charlie Brown. Charlie was immediately taken, not just from Anne Arundel County, but from Maryland immediately after the incident, and has been up here with her and me. And when I come down on the house.
Okay, so
thank you. I just need to know the relationship. My apologies. Thank you, Ed.
She's
you
my
got
daughter.
that? We good? All
Yes,
right.
thank you.
All right, Ms. Hanson, you may continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. She's here also because I have pneumonia, so she's going to help but I should be okay. That morning, I had 2 heart attacks, and my second heart attack, I went to a doctor, a cardiologist down in Annapolis. I have a cardiologist up here in New York as well, but they thought because of the attack, I should have one down there. I went to Dr. Sullivan. She said before she put me on to cardiac rehab, she wanted me to walk 15 minutes a day. I must say that I have never walked the streets of the Downs, and I don't think they know me. And the only people that know me are the 2 neighbors on either side. But she told me I have a long slope. I have a very, very long driveway. She wanted me to walk up the driveway 15 minutes, and that was it. And I was to have no resistance whatsoever because I had just had the heart attack. I thought it was cool to take my dogs with them. One dog, as Mrs. Wolpe mentioned, is a very old Great Pyrenees. She's 12 years old. She was a ADA certified service dog. She is not obviously in service anymore. I've done stem cell therapy on her, and she's still walking. She did have a leash on, but I had dropped the leash because she walks very, very slow and saunders and sort of smells. My other dog was Charlie Brown. He is also an ADA service dog. He was trained rigorously in distance, duration, and distraction. He has saved my husband's life twice. My husband had congestive heart failure, and before he got his new heart and kidney, Charlie Brown found him unconscious twice and saved his life. So he's a fabulous, fabulous dog, has never growled at anybody, has never bit anybody, is with, at dog parks all the time, swim parks. He has play dates all the time. He's fine. The third dog was a puppy, which I got at Millersville. And it basically was for my daughter. And my granddaughter, my 11-year-old. I have 7 grandchildren. So it was for my oldest granddaughter. And he was great. All 3 were great on a leash. We never had any problem. In fact, John, the neighbor that came to help, had seen me probably 4 or 5 days. He passed me because I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac. He is 2 houses up. And as I was walking all 3 of them on leash, he stopped multiple times and said how well behaved what they were and how terrific they were. Anyway, this morning, I always went early, so there was no pulling on the leash. And I went 4 houses, same thing I did every day. I would go 4 houses down, turn the corner. There's a playground there, and then there's a clubhouse. Jennifer, the older Pyrenees, stopped. She always stops at there's like a bench at the playground. She stops and she basically says, okay, I'm done. I leave her there with the leash. She does not move. She just sniffs. I go 1 more house up. I come back. I pick her up and we come back. I saw Mrs. Wolpe, and yes, I waved and said there was no problem with Jennifer. She went on her way. I came down, and went to the end of St. Edmund's Place, looked down toward my house, and there she was with the dog. And I had already picked up, my dog was on, all 3 were on a leash. It was not, I don't think she saw the fact that I was trying to move Jennifer. Jennifer didn't want to move. She wanted to go home. She was finished. And but she was on leash, and I had the leash, and everybody was leashed and collared at that point. I had picked them up at the playground, and they were all on leash, and we were going home. Once I saw her, I saw Charlie Brown starting to jump around. He wanted to play, and he did want to play. He did not have his service harness on because he was not in service. He was not with my husband. And he was jumping up and down wanting to play. I multiple times kept saying to her, please stop. Let me get around the street. It was only probably maybe 15 yards to get me to the corner, and I could turn the corner. And, she kept saying, no, I can't wait. And I said, I need to get them around the corner. I just had a heart attack. I'm not supposed to have pulling on the leash. And she just kept saying, no, I can't. I think she waited for a minute, but she just continued coming. I yelled at her to pick up her dog because he was starting to pull. As I yanked, and I shouldn't have, as I yanked on Charlie Brown to pull him back toward me, he slipped out of the collar and the leash. It was an accident. There was nothing, malicious about it whatsoever. It was a pure accident. As I pulled, he slipped out of the collar, went across the street. But he wanted to play. He started by jumping around and sniffing and running around and sniffing. And if she hadn't screamed and kicked, I could have gotten him back, but she started screaming very, very loud. And then she started kicking him and just kept kicking and kicking and kicking him. And I was talking to my trainer, and the trainer said that at that point, no matter whether he's a service dog or not, with that type of, both dogs, the behavior would have changed. So at one point or another, yes, he ended up fighting. But I still have a dog that is in a fetal position almost and curled up and has to be hand fed. He's traumatized. He was very, very badly bruised. And
Hold on just a second. Nicole, I think there's some background noise. Could you mute coming from? Ms. Henson, you may continue.
yeah, I heard the background noise too. I didn't know what it was from. Anyway, he did not even try to bite Kai until after the kicking and the loud screaming. I couldn't even get a command done. And I understand she was upset, but he did not twist around. She ended up falling over the leash. I was there. I just couldn't do anything because I had two dogs holding him, and the screaming just muted any type of command that I could even possibly give. But I was there. John came up and Charlie went straight home. We got home. I ended up, being monitored for 2 days and sedated. And Charlie Brown was extremely bruised. And again, he needs some help right now, but I'm in a hotel right now. My house up here ended up with a septic overload, and I have been at the Doubletree Hotel in Nanuet for the last 2 months while they're gutting my house and trying to clean it up. And my husband's in a hospital. He just got diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and he's got kidney failure now, and he's doing rounds of chemo. So my plate is really full right now, but I know Charlie Brown needs help. But it was an accident. It was Officer Simpson that encouraged me heavily to appeal and come talk to you guys, because he did not think the citation was necessary because the dog was removed immediately. The fact that I have a house here in New York, the fact that my daughter lives 4 doors away, he was immediately taken up here. He had told me that Mrs. Volpe wanted the dog euthanized, which he thought was ridiculous because there's never been a history. He's a service dog. He's saved lives. He's an incredible dog. You, I believe, have 6 different references, character references with Charlie Brown. He's an incredible dog. I love my dogs. They sleep with me. They're phenomenal. But this was totally out of character. And again, his trainer believed that it was provocated by the shrill screaming and then the kicking. He did not bite until after he was kicked repeatedly. So again, it was an accident. He's not even in the county. He's not even in the state. He's up here. And that's why my daughter's here, because she has, she can, excuse me. I thought I took the inhaler this morning, but anyway, I'd like her to talk too, because she certainly knows the dog well. And she watches the dog now when I come down and check on the house.
Okay, Ms. Hanson, was your daughter at the incident?
No, but my daughter had the dog immediately afterward.
Okay.
And has been watching the dog and has known the dog for the 7 years that I've had him.
Okay.
And I need some water or something. So this is
Okay.
perfect. Okay.
Am I allowed to talk? I'm the daughter. The daughter.
Sure.
Jen.
You've been sworn in, correct?
Yes, I did my hand as please.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I just have the newborn, so I apologize. I'll try to make her out of the screen. So as my mom kind of said, all of the dogs between the two houses, because we live pretty close up here, are my puppy, Tater Tot, had passed away in February. That led to basically getting, which is the third dog, little Beethoven, which was more for my elder granddaughter, or her granddaughter, my daughter, Madison. The reason she had them was I was actually in Florida at the time of the incident. And I do want to say on record that I am incredibly sorry from the bottom of my heart that the accident ever happened. I think the amount of outpouring sympathy, I'm sorry that everything occurred. It was a terrible accident with unforeseen. But I can't speak on that. I can just say I'm so sorry for all involved, because it's been traumatic on both sides of the family. And I'm sure in Julie's home as well. Charlie has come up with me. I can say personally, as I've seen Charlie, I've seen him personally, and I'll only speak about the more recent. I have seen him save my stepdad's life with going up to him when he is in distress or kind of falling down and doing that stuff. But I can say that since I've had him, and I was a little nervous, I know that we're painting him as a vicious dog. I have had him play with my puppy forever. I was a little hesitant with the accident. I will say that out loud, just being sworn to have him back up, because I had four kids at the time. I had 4 kids under 11, and this one I was pregnant. I was heavily pregnant, so I was a little bit cautious. But of course, he's family. So what I have observed is what she's attesting to. I've observed him very shaken. It took him a long time, and our house is not quiet at all by any means. So it was very loud. You could see him still shake when the noise gets above a certain level, he'll hide. And he kind of goes there, and he has to be hand fed a lot of his food. So he was very traumatized after the event. Still is. We're kind of coming around to that. Never once has growled, snipped, done anything to any of the kids who terrorized him. And I'm sorry to say that out loud, but my kids are not necessarily always the most gentle, and I have a 3.5-year-old too. So he is extremely gentle and kind. When I was pregnant, heavily pregnant, and I started, he ended up sleeping on the floor next to me. And when I was in trouble with my pregnancy, like I was having pains or that stuff or that, I can tell you that dog was on my side. And at one time even woke up my husband with whines, just to kind of, I guess, because he knew something was wrong. He's a really good animal. And I think that's one of the reasons is when what's coming back is that the incident, which was an accident between 2 animals and 2 houses, comes back, and it just was very traumatic that unless it was a euthanization for the dog, that it wasn't resolved. And I think that was heartbreaking for, I think, all involved. I personally witnessed my mother, and she's got both of my parents on this side have the encyclopedia of health issues. Not trying to excuse it, just to kind of let everybody know that. But I can tell you that I saw my mom in very, very bad shape for a very long time after the event. I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but I can say that that's what I've observed. There were days that she just literally was in a dark room, unable to move, seeking medical attention and that stuff. But I can tell you that the dog, he's never once growled, done that. He's been around the dogs. He's extremely playful. But I can tell you still to this day, which he was never before the incident, if they're screaming like a certain pitch, he'll run. Like he'll run and hide. And you can see him shaking a little bit. So that's there. And I can attest that I had the dog. I have lots of pictures too with the kids. But he's a really good dog, and he truly is, even though he's not really acting and he needs to get trained, he still was acting in the capacity of a service animal. And I know that, you know, it's one of those things where we're just trying to do right. And I don't know if that's any other questions. I'm sorry. I just wanted to kind of attest to what I physically saw after the event when I had him in my possession.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. I'm going to switch out for her.
Okay, does the commission have any questions?
Yeah, Ed, I've got a question. Do we have administratively a PDO pending on this case, or just have a civil citation going on forward here?
I think the case before us is just a citation. I don't see the terms of any order in the information that I have.
Robin, do we have a PDO coming down the pike on this one?
As of right now, I believe it's just a citation. I don't think we have any orders or anything in place.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I have a question, please. What breed and size of dog is Charlie Brown?
He's a chocolate lab,
And about how much does he weigh?
44 pounds.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Was that 44 pounds?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Wilkie, do you have any rebuttal, any response?
Yes, thank you very much for letting me do this. Number one, I explained to you that our dog is extremely friendly, and he's known as the mayor, and Colleen can attest to it with her dogs as well. When Miss Hanson said that she was trying to tie her dogs up and that her dog came over and wanted to play with our dog, she's incorrect. Her dog came directly to our dog and her back was to me. I screamed, "Can you please get your dog off of my dog?" She did nothing. I screamed again, "Get your dog off of my dog." And at this point, he had his grip on his back hind side. I know what it's like to walk with my dog. I've been doing it for a couple of years with this dog. We had a previous dog and walked my dog in this neighborhood for 20 years. And I know what it's like when dogs approach each other, they smell each other, they want to play. This dog did not want to play. He came directly, unprovoked, to my dog and bit him hard. I tried pulling him to keep walking away from him, and he would not let go until he flipped us over twice. So that statement she made that they wanted to play, she did nothing at all. And she was right by a mailbox where she could have tied up the other dogs and walked across the street to come and get her dog, but she did nothing to do that. So I want to make sure that the record shows that. The other item, euthanization, I never mentioned anything like that to code enforcement, animal control, ever. The officer was very kind to walk me through the whole process of what we have to do, how it had happened. I gave him the information on the person and also the information as well as a copy of Miss Hanson gave me a picture of this dog's service picture, which clearly shows, well, she has a report saying it is a rescue dog, that it's a lab. It is clearly a mix with a pit bull. When I brought the information to animal control, they looked at it and said, that's a pit bull mix. When I brought it to my vet, they said it's a pit bull mix. So yes, it's a rescue dog that may have some lab in it, but it is a dog that has some uncontrollable, energy in it that can easily attack. When Miss Hanson's daughter was talking about traumatization, I'm traumatized. I can't sleep at night. My dog, when I walk him, we can't go near another dog that's the same color as that dog, and he freaks out. I don't understand that it's a simple black and white. Her dog got off the leash and bit my dog. He caused harm to my dog. And so I clearly see that there is definitely a difference. I just can't believe the comments that she made. because she clearly did nothing to take care of that dog, to get him off of me and my dog. And so clearly her story isn't as clear as she thinks it is what she recalls. So therefore, I just want you to cite her for that and just thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hanson, one more opportunity to make some closing remarks, and then we're going to go into our final phase here.
Okay, yeah, I'm very clear. I'm a doctor. I'm very clear about what I saw. And he did come over to play. He came over the same way he goes to all the other dogs at the dog park and everything else. I think she was just extremely panicked or shocked or something this is, I'm a neuropsychologist. This is my wheelhouse. But I know exactly what I saw. No, I could not do a whole lot because she was screaming so loud and kicking the dog, and that dog did never bit, never went down on her dog. And again, my trainer said that both the dogs, their demeanor changed when the screaming and the kicking went. So it was an accident. That was not true. And it was Officer Simpson that said that she wanted the dog euthanized. I did not make that up. And he said that he didn't even think a citation was necessary because it was an accident. And he's the one that heavily encouraged me to do this and said that just make sure you let the commission know that it was an accident. The dog was removed immediately and is not in the state anymore. So there is no threat to anyone on this dog. And again, the dog is a service dog. It's saved my husband's life several times. He's a phenomenal dog. You have 6 or 7, maybe more, character references on Charlie Brown from many different people. One of the best ones, and I have encouraged Julie to talk to him, is my neighbor. My neighbor is Don Sheff, and he lives 858 Coachway. I'm on the water, he's on the water, and his house, you have to go down a valley and then up to get to mine. His dog constantly is getting loose, and it's fine. He comes over all the time to play with Charlie Brown, and they love each other. I mean, he's phenomenal. He runs all the time up, they play, and his girlfriend now and him, they always know exactly where he is. If he's not there, he's over playing with Charlie Brown. We have, between the two of us, he's been my neighbor for probably close to 30 years. Between the two of us, we have probably 8 acres, and I'm all gated. And they, Harley will, and now Chezzy will come right to the gate to get let in, and they play. They run around, they go down to the water, they come back up again. It's constant.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna close now for our deliberations.
Okay.
Any of the commission has any further questions? I think we've.
Real quick, for Ms. Hanson. How old is Charlie Brown? He's 7. Is that correct? Okay. I was just looking at his service dog card. So he became a service dog, what, 2 years old, 3 years old?
Yes.
Okay, so 2019. And then what is just real quick, it doesn't have to be a lot, just what is the background on that training? What is he trained for?
He went up to, I found somebody up outside of Albany. He was up there for 12 weeks. And he went through, and initially it was medical. It was because my husband had diabetes, low blood sugar, and then he had congestive heart failure, was carrying around a little bag that had an IV of medicine, and he would the ejection factor would be very low and he would start passing out. So that's what he was trained for. But I've noticed now that if I have high blood pressure, he comes right next to me, or he'll go to somebody to whine. And again, what Jenny noticed too, that when she was very pregnant and was having problems, he would whine and go get her husband. So I thought he was only trained for my husband, but obviously not. And again, my other one, my Pyrenees, was a service dog as well. And the new one, Bashful, which we got from animal control, he was an unwanted litter, and he's supposed to be, I think, husky. He will be trained at some point as well, because again, as Jenny was saying, I've had 2 heart attacks. He is in the hospital now with cancer, and
Okay,
he's got
Okay.
multiple
All right, that
stuff.
works. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
we're going to begin our deliberations now. Being no further questions, I don't see any. If there are, we will call witnesses or the complainant or the defendant back and for any questions that we may have. Other than that, we are going to move to our open deliberations. And I believe let's begin with Dr. Hammer.
Thank you, Ed. This is a tough one. I think both parties here have legitimate concerns on both sides. And the fact that Charlie Brown is a service dog and invaluable to the Hansons is something we can't really discount. I'm getting the impression from the statement that's in the records that Charlie Brown won't be coming back to the county or the state, that he'll stay in New York where Ms. Hanson is now. So based on that, and the fact that Ms. Wopke certainly has suffered some trauma here, as has Callie, I'm thinking it would be a reasonable middle ground, since we don't have a PDO pending on this case at all, that it's just a civil citation, that we go ahead and uphold the civil citation, because we have to protect the citizens of the county and the citizens of the Downs should this dog come back into the state for any reason. But I'd go ahead and waive the fine associated with the citation. Those are my thoughts on the case.
Thank you, Dr. Hammer. Nicole?
Yes, so I somewhat agree, somewhat disagree with Dr. Hemmer. In my opinion, while it was an accident, the dog clearly inflicted injury, and that's the point of the citation. I'm actually quite surprised there's not an at-large affidavit for a citation on that also, because I believe, based upon testimony, that could also be an upheld citation had that been filed. It's my vote to uphold citation and the fine.
Thank you, Nicole. Jackie?
So I tend to agree with Nicole. I don't see any reason for not upholding the citation and the fine vote. And I think that we should, there's not a PDO pending, but if Charlie Brown were to come back into the county, well, I guess we really can't take any action on that at this point. So again, just uphold the citation and the fine.
Okay. Corporal Wiley?
After hearing both testimonies, I understand that we call it an accident, but just like crashes, there's multiple things that happen there. It's a public safety threat, inflict injury to a domesticated animal, which is what happened here. So I'm for upholding it and the fine. We shouldn't walk 3 dogs at once if we can't maintain all 3 of them.
Okay, Jennifer?
I don't know. I guess maybe I'm the only person kind of torn on this at the moment. Because unfortunately, neither of the neighbors that testified actually saw what happened. So I only one party says the dog was provoked and acting in response to kicking and screaming, and one party says it was unprovoked. I'm not really sure how to tip the scale. I agree with Nicole in the sense that if there was an at-large citation, I think that's kind of clear. I understand it was an accident, the dog getting off the leash and the collar, and clearly Ms. Hansen could not, I'm sure I'm getting the names right. Given her current medical condition after having her second heart attack, I don't think it's realistic to expect that she could have chased the dog down or grabbed it. But I'm really kind of torn on what caused this dog to inflict the injury, because it is a trained service animal. It's had, and this is not your average dog walking the street. If, if Miss Wilkie, if she really was just panicked and because of that started kicking and screaming, that would, then the dog could have been provoked. But if it happened the way she claims and the dog just ran up and started biting, I guess I don't know. I haven't heard anything that tips me one way or the other, so I'm really kind of torn on this. I would vote because there was an injury inflicted. If I'm the only odd person out, I would I guess go with the commission on issuing the citation and waiving the fine, but I'm really just undecided.
Okay. Tom?
I would vote to uphold the citation. I'm a little frustrated that somebody would decide to walk 2 potentially large dogs. I don't know how big the third dog is, when they, are in a situation where they really have been instructed by their doctor not to put themselves in that situation. I feel like with the evidence presented as far as the injuries to the animal, I too am kind of surprised that we don't see a PDO here. Honestly, I mean, I understand it's an accident. All the times we see a PDO, it's an accident. No one genuinely intends for their animal to do that. We have a situation where this dog has now been allowed to enter another jurisdiction, and we don't know whether if let's just say the situation is as Ms. Hansen claims, and the screaming is what caused the dog to bite. Either way, the dog being loose and being able to get away from her, if anyone screamed, it could be a child that screams, and that dog would be, that just because the child screams, then the dogs should be, triggered to bite. I don't think that's right. Service dog or not, I understand the dog is very important to their family, but I think that restrictions on that animal in Anne Arundel County should, I'm very surprised that just because this was considered an accident that we were pushed to, even allowed to let this dog leave the jurisdiction without anything further. Honestly, I mean, it's an animal that can get, has been given that opportunity to get loose and can, and this has happened regardless. I mean, there was definitely injury to the animal regardless why that animal chose to bite. I understand. But it would concern me that if, without a secondary barrier, the dog gets out again and runs, and there happens to be a kid walking a dog, same thing could happen. So I would absolutely uphold this, and I'm very surprised that we didn't see it as a PDO. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. As for myself, I'm a little torn, like everyone else. In reading the file, I noticed that basically there's not that much difference in the accounts of the defendant or the complainant. Both agree that the defendant put her hand up to slow down the approach so that there wouldn't be an accident per se. And also there was I don't want to use the word confession, but there was an agreement in the statement of the complainant that she was kicking at the dog. Again, the dog approached them, which is wrong. She did say that the complainant offered to pay expenses. This was rejected because she just wanted it on record. I believe it is on record with this now. There's no PDO or anything. And I tended to agree with Dr. Hemmer at first that, we keep the citation solid and waive the fine. However, after hearing Tom's input and Nicole's, there was sufficient harm done. So, I have to go back on that. The county law does call for a fine under these particular circumstances to kind of drive it home so that it doesn't happen again, even though the dog is out of state. I don't know what legalization, legal aspects would be necessary for us to report to, Robin would know that, to report to any of the New York area where the dog remains. But that's my thoughts. I initially agree with Dr. Hemmer, but now, after hearing all of that, I believe that the citation and the fine needs to be upheld. So, yes, Jackie, what?
Yes, if I heard and understood correctly, her offer to pay the medical bills was dependent on Mrs. Wilkie dropping the charges or dropping the citation.
True.
And I think that, as Tom said, I think there was a really, Ms. Hansen's decision to try to walk all three dogs under her current medical condition was really a bad choice.
It probably was, yes. I don't think, we're not in a situation here with the PDO or anything in front of us where we could assess that someone other than Miss Hansen walked the animals. But that would be a good suggestion. I mean, in her current state, I would, if you're in Anne Arundel County, again, in that area, I would maybe have someone else walk the dogs.
One thing I just want to add, I think it's kind of reiterating what I said, basically, was just, we're talking about this animal as a service animal, and this animal should be trained in a certain way. If the animal is a service animal, especially for a medical situation, if someone has a heart attack, if someone is low on blood sugar or something like that, could have a seizure, we're talking about someone that could be screaming and kicking at that time. And so the animal, if it were trained properly, should not be biting as a response to that. That's how I see it. So I don't, the more I think about that, I just don't understand how an animal that was trained in this way should have responded in that way if it, if that's what was the, what happened. I mean, I understand that everybody's different. Things are going to happen. Animals are going to respond how they're going to respond. But if it were trained in the way that it's been claimed to have been trained, you would think it would not respond in that way.
But wouldn't, and I guess Dr. Hemmer can answer this there. I mean, and I'm not believing one account over the other, but if it happened the way Miss Hansen said, and that the dog was being kicked prior to biting, I mean, wouldn't any dog, even a service animal, defend itself?
Potential. I understand that, and I agree with you there. But I also think that if the dog was being kicked at and in that situation, it would have been trained to retreat from that situation, not bite or otherwise. I'm not saying it doesn't have the right to defend itself or it couldn't defend itself. I'm saying that if it were trained in that way, I would think the other way. But Doctor, I mean, you might have a better. That's just my point. Is I would think. I don't know that much about it, but I'm just saying that I would think the animal would be trained to kind of avoid that type of situation rather than engage if it were being attacked. We're stuck.
I think Tom and Jennifer have very good points, and my thoughts on this have changed based on what Tom and Nicole have brought out. And Tom has made some very salient points. I think we probably should uphold both the citation and the fine. And I can't really disagree with Tom's comment that if this is truly a properly trained service dog, you know, those dogs are selected to have certain demeanors about them. And the last thing I would expect from a service dog would be to respond in a violent or an aggressive manner with an external stimuli that it should be trained or desensitized to. And so, you know, Tom brings up some very, very salient points that I think that we all have to reconsider here. And like I said, this has caused me to reconsider my position that yes, we probably should uphold both the citation and the fee.
Is that a motion?
I can make that a motion.
I
make a motion that
I think we're all in agreement.
Ending in 40259, including the citation and the fee.
I would second it.
All in favor? Okay. Robin, did we get that?
No, I jotted it down for her. And I just want to, I know you mentioned the order real quick, so I just want to let you guys know. It is my understanding, we did not know she was taking the dog out of state until the dog was out of state. And then she advised us that the dog was then currently in a new state. If it wasn't for that, there would be a potential order.
Ah.
Okay, so
now,
okay. Right. So the only reason why we got a citation was because the dog left the state and is technically not coming back, at least per the statement from Ms. Hansen. Okay.
Correct. That is my understanding.
What is our obligation then with this citation being upheld? Is there any notification that needs to follow this animal to the New York area?
Most likely what will happen is that now that this has been handled, we will be issuing a letter to Ms. Hansen notifying her that if the dog did come back here, then a potentially dangerous order would be issued. So the dog is not to come back to Anne Arundel County. And we generally make courtesy notifications to other jurisdictions. Not a requirement, but it's a courtesy that we do to other jurisdictions.
Right. And tongue in cheek, I can't help it.
Hand raised intentionally.
Pardon me?
I just see that Dr. Hammer's hand is up.
Oh.
I don't know if he means it to be.
No, I will put that back down. Thank you, Robin.
Okay. And in closing this issue out, I can't help but think that Charlie Brown is up in New York singing, "Why is everybody always picking on me?" But anyway, let's move on. I believe now we have to go through the minutes from the December 4th meeting, which included discussion on the proposed bill, if you all remember. So we're going to take a look at the minutes. Does everybody have copies of the minutes? Okay. And take a look at those and make sure that everybody's vote was counted correctly as it states. And I have an issue with one. The first page I have is dated Animal Matters Commission 12/4, but then below it, it says minutes from 11/6, and it has a concurrence, and it's got Tom Berger voting yes and no, and it's got Corporal Wally voting yes and no. So I don't know exactly what that particular document means. Here it is. I don't know if you all can read it from mine.
We can see it in the drive. It's the same way in the drive.
Oh, you all do have that?
Yes.
It's got two different dates on it, and it's got yeah, there we go. What's up with that?
Oh, you know what? I think the one in the drive is the old unedited version. Because I thought we corrected that. These were sent out ahead of time because of the detailed discussion regarding the proposed legislation. And we did raise, I know I did, about that double checked yes and no, but.
Right. Are you seeing my screen right now? I did a share
I
screen.
am, and I see that
Yeah.
it's corrected here. I'm actually, on my other computer, I have the minutes.
Oh, okay.
On mine, it says yes and no, so we must have the old one.
So I
Yeah,
wondered
the one
if
that's in.
the old one was maybe put in the drive for you all, maybe.
Okay.
And let me make a copy.
All right, so. Yeah.
Yeah, mine doesn't say draft 2 next to it.
Okay, if you guys can refresh your drives, hopefully there's one that says draft 2 there.
Yep, now I see it.
Hopefully we can review that one.
It's there now. Thank you, Robin.
Absolutely. Sorry about that.
Okay. That clear up that? All right. So the rest of it looks pretty accurate to me. Is everybody else satisfied with the rest of the minutes?
Yes, the version that's in the drive now is the corrected version that we were previously able to review. I'd make a motion that we adopt the minutes as corrected.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Okay. All right. With that, I guess we move on to Bill 124. That apparently they took some of our advice from our discussions and maybe not so much in some areas. There will be a public hearing in Annapolis at the council meeting place, wherever that is, on February 5th. I believe it's from 7 o'clock at night until 11:30. That's the time frame they have assessed for that particular meeting. And after saying that, I will defer now to Robin and let her point out some of the good points and some of the bad points after our discussion on the matter. Robin?
Can I just ask, as commission members, are we, I mean, we're not, or it's not appropriate for us to testify at a county council hearing on legislation like this, correct?
In the past, commission members have testified. We've also had times where the commission prepared a letter to send in to essentially to go to all of the county council members for their consideration.
Also,
Current sitting members should not be involved in that hearing process, correct? Unless we do it as a group.
I think if there's a group decision, and I'm looking to see if anybody from Office of Law is on here, which I don't recall seeing anybody from Office of Law. Just look.
I would also like to add, while you're looking for that, that I have been, Robin and I both received, upon my request for a copy of this bill, we were advised that even though we can look at it today, right here, that the day that they set the vote on it, that it can be tweaked at the last.
Yes, that's.
Yeah.
Well, if they make adjustments to it, what happens is if they make amendments to it, then it gets pushed back to another hearing. So they might vote on making some adjustments. At least that's been my experience. I'm going to try calling Office of Law real quick and see if I can get one of them. So give me 1 moment, please.
Yeah, that's an important question, Robin, because I'm planning to attend.
Considering as well, and I've testified many times before the county council, but I've never had a time where I thought there might be a conflict like this. I have to assume that my right as a private citizen is still intact, even though I sit on the commission, and as long as I clearly identify that I'm speaking for myself personally and not on behalf of the commission, that I'm okay. But I just want to verify before I step on any toes.
I understand. It's a funny thing how long this takes. You know, the wheels turn very slowly in the government process.
That's by design, though. I mean, you don't want anybody making rash decisions most of the time.
No. Sometimes it's good, but I understand this has been tossed around now for a better part of 18 months, if not longer.
I'm okay with that because I want them to get it right before they
yeah,
put it in. So
I've been working on a piece of federal legislation for over 7 years. That's the PAST Act to improve the Horse Protection Act against soaring.
Oh. Okay. Well, we'll wait on what Robin finds out through legal. While we're doing that, if you all want to browse through the copy of the bill, it does.
I have a quick question though, because on the copy that we were sent, I mean, we had voted, and it's in the minutes. We had made a change, or we had approved 12.4.402E, but I don't even see an E on this. I just want to make sure I'm.
Jennifer, if memory serves, I thought we deleted a section in here because I believe and I may misspeak here, I believe you had pointed out that that section was redundant.
Oh,
Was that
okay,
it?
right. So, all right. So we removed it and they removed it. They agreed. Okay. I guess that
Correct,
was,
yeah.
and I'm looking at that
Yeah,
now. The
point of
removal
note.
of the,
This version is different from the version that you all last saw. They have made amendments.
oh, no, I understood that. I was looking, I guess, for the strike
Oh,
so that we could see we had the comparison and I didn't see it listed at all. So that's okay. All
Yeah,
right.
that's just because
Thank
the
you.
strikes would be from existing law as opposed to strikes from
Strikes
draft.
from,
Right.
right, gotcha.
So a draft recommended change would just be removed, and the strikes are what law is in existence. And I think Curran from Office of Law is working on joining to do that.
It appears that they took out that one about the reptiles and everything that we had
Yes,
discussed with that. It also appears that they adopted the ramping up of the evidence that we had suggested last time.
yes, but they did not strike the specific criteria as we had recommended.
Correct.
They want, eyewitness or digital evidence has remained in there.
Correct.
They did not adopt our suggestion for the graduate
What?
licensing scheme that we had suggested. Under 124702 C3, we had suggested, like I said, a graduated system. And then 124901, I'm like,
See if it'll
is
let
that
me-
something we did not discuss?
I believe that's like a whole new section.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I don't see it on the.
All right, but I guess we can discuss it as we go through this. I don't want to delay Robin, so if her only thing right now is answering my question about commission members testifying, we can save that for later so that we can go through the bill now.
Yeah.
On now.
Oh, yeah, Curran just got on.
Sorry. So if you want to repeat your questions, Jennifer, now that Curran can hear you.
Curran, I think I know the answer to this, but I just wanted to get confirmation that as a private citizen, I could still testify at the hearing, the council hearing on this bill in February, as long as I'm very clear and specific that I'm not representing the commission when I do so. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think the other question that members had was, would they all have to be there if they wanted to present something or give a statement or whatever as a commission, or could they do a letter, or is it all or nothing kind of deal?
I think they could do a letter. I think they could determine during one of these open meetings to have someone from the commission present to the council. And as long as that decision is made during the open meeting, I think it'd be fine if just one person showed up or if just a letter was sent in.
The letter would be akin to written testimony being submitted, right? Or is it somehow different coming from the commission?
I would assume they would be the same, at least handled by the council the same way as written testimony from a citizen would be. Whether coming from the commission, it'd be given greater weight. I can't speak for the council on that, but I think as far as submitting it to the council, it would be submitted through the same process as written testimony from a citizen. I think that the council would have to seek opinion from the commission for it to be handled differently.
So as I understand it, if we appear at the council meeting, we do so as private citizens, correct?
It sounds like what Kern is saying is if you appear and want to present something on your own as a private citizen, you can. If this commission as a whole during this public meeting deliberates and comes to a consensus as to something that they would like someone from the commission to go and speak on behalf of at the county council meeting, then that discussion could be had and a representative could be selected to go and present those particular opinions or information that they would like the county council to consider. So there's kind of two ways to attend the county council, but one would require that you all come to some decisions and be able to agree that someone's going to present that. Curran, have I summed that up properly?
Yeah, I think that would be the options that.
And I would suggest that if we go that route, that if there are, I'm not an Anne Arundel County citizen. You could use me if you need to, but if there's other members of if there's members on this commission that would want to, put their personal opinion out there, we should choose somebody. If we decide to do that and not do a letter, we should choose somebody that does not want to proffer their own opinion to present to the council. So there's no like, hey, this is my opinion. Oh, and this is the council's out of the same mouth.
Green.
And keep in mind, while I have an opinion, my opinion definitely represents the health department and the leadership of the health department to some extent. So while I do have some personal, opinions when we do these cases and things like that, the back of my mind is always, I'm looking at the public health of the community.
Okay. I don't know if Robin, I'm going to defer to you to take us through this and show what portions of it were considered and adopted from our discussion, which ones were changed, and other certain things we need to point out about this bill.
Okay, so just like last time, to make things easier, because I think it worked pretty well, I'm going to try to break this down by which piece we're discussing first. As was already mentioned, the changes in definition of domesticated animal as they relate to 124402 were removed. So your suggestion to remove that was adopted by the administration. The next piece to look to is 124402B, and they're potentially dangerous. They adopted the suggestion to have the burden of proof be by preponderance of evidence. So as you all recommended. They also, for dangerous, do we want to vote on these each, or if it's something that you all already agreed with, we're good and I can kind of keep moving?
You can keep
We already agreed to it.
Yeah.
I don't see why we need to vote again.
Perfect.
Agreed.
So for dangerous, they also adopted your recommendations to by clear and convincing evidence. And for vicious, in D, they adopted leaving that, which was their original suggestion, to determine beyond a reasonable doubt that the animal. This, and Jennifer was 100% correct, is where we had kind of one of the first deviations from the suggestions that you all had made. So 124402 D1, they originally had in the based on testimony from an eyewitness to the event supporting the designation or through authenticated digital evidence showing the events supporting the designation. You all had recommended that that be removed because you felt like by raising the bar to beyond a reasonable doubt, that would be sufficient, especially because those other limitations don't exist in other portions of the law. This suggestion was not incorporated. So the question is, do you all want to, I guess, weigh in to not have a vote on that, or would you like to vote on that again?
Well, it says based on testimony from an eyewitness, which, obviously the eyewitness would be the person that would have been attacked, or walking the dog that was attacked or something like that. The digital evidence, and not everybody's going to have a camera on, or, you know, not everybody in that situation is going to whip out their camera and start taking pictures when they're being attacked if they're the only ones there. So I don't know if it does any harm being left there, as long as it also includes testimony from an eyewitness.
Well, I guess where I have a rub with the eyewitness part, Ed, is how many times in commission on these things have we heard blah, 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 blah. Then I heard a scream and turned, and then my dog was dead and ripped to pieces. So one could reasonably say, did you witness this dog ripping this other dog to pieces? And it's like, no, I didn't see that actually happen. I just saw the aftermath of that. And we hear that time and again. Not that we haven't heard people say, yeah, I actually witnessed the whole attack from start to finish, but we do get that. And my concern would be if we leave that in, we're going to miss a couple of cases where these vicious dogs, because we don't have eyewitness testimony or authenticated digital evidence, gets a pass.
I totally agree. I can think of a variety of scenarios where the circumstantial evidence could be overwhelming. And I don't understand why we're going to tie our hands like that. Once you've raised the standard to beyond a reasonable doubt, that should, to me, that sufficiently covers it. And I wish maybe we need to, it looks like council, that it was the county executive's request and Councilwoman Pickard introduced it. I guess I'd love to hear the thought behind it. Why only those two types of evidence can get you to beyond a reasonable doubt?
When I was
because
thinking,
I'm thinking if,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, if I'm an eyewitness and I say, no, I didn't see the attack, but when I turned around, the dog had the cat's severed paw in its mouth. Well, that's kind of compelling.
Well,
did I see it happen? No. Do I have a video? No, but that's pretty strong circumstantial evidence, and I'd hate to have that discounted. I'm not understanding.
Well, can I real quick, the word, and I hate to do this because we did this last week on the word, potentially, and I don't want to do this on a word, but the word is event, not a witness to the event. So if the event, and I agree with you guys, by the way, I really don't think that I think that limiting the type of evidence is not appropriate. But if you look at the word event, like, would it, could you consider the word event different than attack? So like, if I came out and I had a witness to the fact that, my dog is dead and there's a dog right next to him, with blood all over him, I didn't witness him attack him, but is the event, hey, the witnessing of that, seeing that, can that be submitted? I mean, that's kind of the only, and again, I don't want to argue over semantics, but that's the only way I could see that going well for us.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Tom. But if any of these people show up with attorneys, they're gonna, tear this up, and that's gonna be a headache. And I guess kind of where I'm going with this is that, we should just, I would suggest we just get rid of the whole thing, just like we did last time, and playing devil's advocate from the county board's position. And if I misspeak here, Robin, please correct me. If an animal gets deemed vicious, it's destroyed. And so maybe they're putting in such strict proof because we're actually destroying somebody else's property. The county is taking possession and destroying property without due process. And I guess maybe that's kind of where they were driving for the hard specifics if we're going to destroy somebody else's property. Because animals are property in the county.
Yeah, they're putting potential death sentence on an animal. Yeah, that's why they're tightening it up. I can tell you that.
If I'm playing devil's advocate, that's probably why they're doing it. And if they're going to destroy somebody's property, they want to be crystal clear when they get sued. Why did you destroy my property? It's like, no, we had somebody actually witnessed this happen. That's why you got the determination. That's why we destroyed your property.
I guess
that's the only way that I can see
it was, we hear circumstantial evidence in murder cases where people are put to death. It's like,
agreed.
How in the world can we, look at it otherwise? It just seems crazy to me. But if we,
I
I
agree
do-
with you, Tom. I'm just trying to think how maybe the board sees it.
Oh, I'm sure that's how they see it. Yeah.
I do note this, though, if you go to 2, another requirement is that it had to have a previous incident.
Well,
If you
I
take
want
a-
to try and take them one at a time just because it's easier to discuss one piece at a time when we're doing the minutes.
and that's true. I just wanted to point that out, though, Robin, that I don't know if that was in the previous draft that we discussed.
It
Was
was,
it?
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
something that you all recommended removing as well.
Can I make a
Actually,
motion that
the
we?
word previously last time you all decided not to weigh in on because no one quite knew what was happening there. But then the verb.
We asked for clarification.
Yes, you asked for clarification. I don't know if any was sent to Ed.
No.
Well, can
Well,
I make a motion that
Yeah.
we strike section 12.4.402D subsection 1 in its entirety?
yeah, I second that motion.
What? Can I just ask for a clarification? If we strike it in its entirety, then we're also removing existing language that says killed or inflicted severe injury on a person or domesticated animal, and I don't think that's your intent.
Correct. Thanks for pointing that out, Jennifer. I amend my motion to what Jennifer said.
So just to be clear, the motion is to strike the recommended changes to 12.4.401D1. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Unanimous. Okay, thanks, everybody. Okay, now we can move on to 12.4.402D2. And this does, as we just started discussing, have kind of a two-part change. The first one is it adds the word previously. So this proposal says, has previously been determined to be potentially dangerous or dangerous by the agency and engages in a second incident that constitutes a public safety threat as described in the subsection A of this section. And then it adds, based on testimony from an eyewitness to the event supporting the designation or through authenticated digital evidence showing the event supporting the designation. And Curran can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is that would mean, Curran, I think this was one of the questions that we had. Does the second incident have to have those things, or would both the first and second incident have to have those things? Wasn't that kind of one of our discussion points last time that you were looking for clarification on because of that previously?
I believe Miss Hilliard from my office was here for that portion of it. I wasn't here for that discussion last time. I don't have a copy of the legislation in front of me at this point.
Let me send it to you.
If it's based on previously having been determined to be potentially dangerous or dangerous, I think that would just be a determination that it's potentially dangerous. I don't think the underlying facts would go into. I don't think you'd have to re-adjudicate the underlying facts to reach this second determination.
So your understanding would be that the reference to the what specific digital or eyewitness account information would be related to the second incident, not related to the prior incident if that order had stood as it was designated. Am I interpreting that
That
right?
would be my understanding, but let me look at the bill when it gets to me.
Okay, I did send you a link.
Well, I'd reiterate that, unless Curran can clear up what previously means, I would say we kind of stick to what we did last time and ask for clarification if we can't get it here today, and then strike the same part that we struck from the section prior. I mean, I think that's kind of where we're at. I'll give Curran a couple minutes to look through that, but Because again, I think our concern was you could remove the word previously, and I think it all still means the same. Well, potentially could mean the same thing, right? That was kind of our thing, is like they added a word for kind of what purpose.
And how
It
long?
seems to me that it's so that we don't, if they don't add the previously, it's redundant because otherwise we're talking about the same current finding.
That's how I'm reading it, Jennifer. That's how I'm reading it. There's a redundancy there.
Can we move on and come back to that once Kern has had a chance to review it? Because I don't think we have too much trouble with the next few, but the one at the end, I think we're going to have a lengthy discussion on.
Okay, so, the next one, 124403C3 is one that you all, suggested because of the changes to the previous levels of burden of proof. This just then reflects that the appeal of orders shall be handled at the burden of proof level that was suggested in the other parts. So they did incorporate your suggested changes on that one. And then for the next section, which is the reconsideration, I have to pull up notes on this because it's a little bit more in depth. Just skimming because I don't think that we have recommended it. Or that you, sorry, not we. I'm just here to help facilitate.
If I may, Robin, we're doing reconsideration. Are we past number one yet?
So I'm pulling up the notes from last time because I just wanted to make sure. So D1, our notes for the reconsideration last time have addition of reconsideration. What you all recommended striking was the no more than 2 years from the amendment.
Correct. And the rest of the changes remain as is. So if I'm looking at this correctly, everything in caps under D reconsideration is their original proposed, and with our modification of striking the 2 years.
Looks like it. Yep.
Yeah.
So that looks like they incorporated that change as well.
And then if you look on our next one, it says and add no more than one time in a 12-month period, which they did.
Which they did. Yep. So it looks like all of your changes under the reconsideration were taken in.
Okay, with that, Robin, maybe it was an oversight by myself during the last discussion, but in number 2, where it says accept the designation of an animal as potentially dangerous or dangerous, I don't believe, personally, I don't believe that should be in there because correct me if I'm wrong, that moniker on an animal, Dr. Hemmer, I believe we had a case or maybe a couple cases where the defendant didn't want the moniker on their animal because it would affect their ability to do
Get
something.
insurance? Wasn't it to get insurance?
I don't think it was the insurance as much as it was breeding.
Okay.
Does it affect breeding and other?
Generally speaking, breeders don't want to breed an animal with a history of public safety.
Yeah. That's the thing that I it's just me, Perhaps, I don't know, maybe the rest of the commission doesn't agree, but I think an animal owner who's making an appeal should have the ability to appeal that designation. I
So
don't think it should be
they would,
restricted.
this is they still have the appeal process in the beginning where they could appeal the designation. My
Right.
understanding, and Kern can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that this reconsideration section is meant to be that if an order is already exists and the appeal process has already gone through, then this would be later on, say, my dog has now done obedience classes, or now my dog is old and feeble and
Right.
don't really think that a 6-foot privacy fence is necessary and I'm planning on moving. It's to appeal specific aspects of the order. The intent, my understanding of the intent from the administration on this was not to allow retrying the whole thing, because that would require bringing all of the case forward again, just to allow for considerations to be made for changes to the order.
Was my understanding, and it came on the heels of I mean, our discussion, we had just had a case recently where I think an internal secondary barrier posed a risk to an infirm resident of the house. And since I think we had discussed it might not be necessary to effectuate the purpose of the of our order, but could harm a human that lived there, it might not be necessary. So in those, in those cases, they can change any of the individual items of the order, but they can't change the designation.
Yeah, and I don't think we want to go down the road of changing the designation, because remember, our process here is to protect the safety of the citizens and the animals of the county. And if we change a designation, then technically this animal doesn't have a history with animal control, and that could affect how we decide things. So I think keeping the moniker on there is the same, but certainly adjusting the conditions as circumstances change over time, I think, and I thought we agreed, was not unreasonable.
Well, maybe I should clarify. I'm thinking that as an owner, if my dog was designated as vicious, maybe I could, in my appeal, if I'm going to make it, maybe I could get it down to dangerous or potentially dangerous, or if I have it as dangerous, I could, in my appeal, get it down to potentially dangerous.
That would still occur in the regular appeals process, Ed. The regular appeals process still stands when you would have the opportunity to do that. If you follow the appeals and say
when they come initially before the commission.
Right.
Okay, but we're taking it away from them if they.
We're not taking it away, because all of this is an addition. There was no reconsideration before. Once they had their appeal, the order stood for the life of the animal. What this is doing is adding in the option for them to request specific changes to the order. So like if it was a vicious and that had been upheld, we wouldn't be back here because the animal would have been humanely euthanized. There would be no opportunity for reconsideration because they would have already had their appeal.
Okay, I'm just trying to, this is a reconsideration, and it's saying accept the designation of an animal as potentially dangerous or dangerous. So it doesn't include vicious, and it doesn't allow them to try to, if I'm going to make an appeal for reconsideration, it doesn't allow me that particular aspect to reconsider the title that's being put on my animal. So
you're confusing processes. It's
I'm going to try to pull
it's two different processes.
Yeah. So that maybe a visual will help show kind of what we're talking about a little bit better, Ed. I'm hoping.
Okay. I'm just trying to. I'm just wondering how come they would make that an exception under the reconsideration.
So
Maybe
because
if
it's
you
not
think
part
it-
of the appeals process. You can appeal the designate. I mean, when you first get that citation, you start with us and you can appeal the dog being listed as vicious, dangerous, potentially dangerous. And if you don't like our decision, you can move it on up the chain. But
Correct.
once that is all finished, 2 years from now, if something has changed and you can no longer, for whatever reason, have that secondary barrier or that 6-foot fence or whatever else, whatever condition is in that order you need to change, now you can come back and request it being changed. You've never had that option before. We're not talking about changing the dog's status as dangerous or vicious or anything like that. We're talking about the conditions that have been imposed.
That's what I understand, and that's what I'm questioning. Is exactly that. Is that
Ed, if I may point you to the screen,
Cool.
hopefully you're seeing, right now, what you're seeing is C, which you see a little bit of in the version that we have, because we have added that appeals of orders can still happen, and the suggestion is that we break down the standards as those that we've discussed. So preponderance of evidence for PDO, clear and convincing for DO, and beyond a reasonable doubt for vicious. This appeals process, which already exists, which is what, when we issue an order, the owner, as is now, this would not change with this legislation. When we issue that original order, the owner would have the opportunity to appeal, and that would be for vicious, dangerous, or potentially dangerous, that designation. And
Okay,
that's they would do this. So they would still have this. The reconsideration is then being added as a D. So after they've had that appeals process, or even if they decided, I don't want, if they didn't appeal to begin with, right? Sometimes we have owners that go, all of these seem like reasonable things. I'm just gonna comply. So the order exists, the label exists. Then 10 years from now, their dog is old and arthritic, can't run after anything. They may want to come back and ask the commission to reconsider specific pieces of the order, not the label.
Oh, and I understand that. I like I said, I'm just curious as to why. In other words, we are set once it's done with either dangerous, potentially dangerous, or vicious. It stays for life.
The label would stay, yes. And my understanding of some of the reasoning for that is because we don't want to have to retry the case over and over again. And you have to retry the case to determine what label is appropriate.
So,
Whereas for reconsideration, where you're just looking at amending specific pieces, you can accept that everyone can concur. The case happened, the incident happened, we're all on the same page. The designation for what happened was correct. But maybe now the specific things needed to protect the community are not so necessary.
okay, and I understand that. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of the animal owner, that if I'm asking for a reconsideration based on the previous cases that we had where the complainant, the defendant complained that this particular title that's going to be assessed on my animal is going to hurt my ability to do X, Y, Z. And I can't remember all of it. I think one of it is breed. Another one of it may have been something else that they could no longer do with the animal with this title over their head. And that it's okay for me. I'm just under reconsideration. That is not a consideration.
Right. Under reconsideration, that's not a consideration.
Okay. And that's kind of where I was. I was just curious as to why it wasn't, but okay.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be better if they said reconsideration of conditions, because that's really what we're doing.
Yeah.
In this section.
Well, is that maybe a recommendation that someone would make
Well,
as a motion?
And I'd be okay if they labeled it reconsideration of conditions. I think the whole point of adding in the accept the designation of an animal is to keep the public from getting confused and thinking that they could somehow have that designation reconsidered. That was just to reinforce that that's not what this section is about.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jennifer. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe I make a motion that we change that title of section D to reconsideration of conditions to help the council clarify it better.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Got it. Okay, so moving along, this is something new that was not in the previous version that you all saw, and also doesn't relate to public safety. This section relates to adoption fees and redemption fees. And it is adding in 124504C2 that at the request.
Before we get there,
Oh, yep.
before we get there, can we just agree that, or whatever, we skipped over one of the changes?
You want to go back to 124402 D2?
No, 124702C3. We had suggested a graduated payment and they just went.
That'll be coming after this one because they're just in order by number, and this one's 124504. That one will be coming up next. That's on page 4 of the bill.
Are they list?
It's because
okay, and we're still
pieces that were added, so we're getting there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you had skipped to the end. Mom, I apologize.
No, you're fine. It's a lengthy bill with lots of pieces, so I totally get it. So on 124404, it says at the request of an animal owner and upon a showing of good cause, the agency may waive some or all redemption fees. And so it has that because we take in animals for all kinds of reasons, many of which are protective custody. So for example, if an owner it lives alone and has a heart attack or some other medical emergency and is taken by ambulance to the hospital, when they get released to come and reclaim their animal, we do not have the authority to waive fees for them. So they have to pay the impound fee, the board fees, all of that kind of stuff. That's just one example. Sorry, there was some background noise coming from my door. Some other times I know we've certainly had cases where someone was involved in a car accident and had their animal in the car. And they may have had the impression from the first responders that their animal would come here for safekeeping and they'd be able to reclaim it no fee, but we don't have the authority to waive that currently in the law. So right now what's been happening is staff, volunteers, our Friends of group have been pulling money out of their own pockets so that we're not violating the laws, so that when these extraordinary circumstances occur, the owner who's already going through a difficult time is not then having to pay more fees.
Would that also give the commission the flexibility that in our proceedings, if we deem an animal to be neutered, we could waive the neutering fee at animal care and control? Does that give us that flexibility?
So, yeah, I believe it would. Corinne, correct me if I'm wrong, but my reading of it would be yes.
And isn't that also though reiterated in 124912? Because it actually specifically says that.
Yep. Later on in a different spot. Although that's adoption fees.
But it says, or the cost of spaying or neuter. Oh,
yeah.
So you're talking about licensing fees. Never mind. Sorry.
That's okay.
Boy, I'm really,
It's case of the Mondays, right? That's all right.
Oh.
Well, then I make a motion, we approve section 124504C subsection 2.
Second.
Written.
I'll second.
That second, who was that second? Sorry.
It was
Jennifer.
me.
Okay.
Or somebody.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Got it. Okay. Next, we're moving on to those dog and cat licenses. So this is 124702C3. In our last meeting, you all had recommended essentially a tiered system. So the first year, the fee was the full fee, and then next year half that, then next year half that, and then doing the normal annual licensing fees for an animal that's spayed or neutered, etc. That's either a DO or PDO. The initial suggestion had been that after the first year, the fees revert to the standard rate for any other animal. It does not appear your suggestion was not incorporated. So at this time, the proposed legislation still has that the fees would be the normal fee for dangerous of $125 or $100 for potentially dangerous, and then future years it would revert to the normal licensing fees, which would be essentially $2 because all animals that get one of these orders are generally spayed or neutered. If there was an exception, it'd be $15 for an annual license, $5 for a 3-year neutered or spayed animal, and $40 for an unspayed or neutered animal for a 3-year license.
Didn't the original version of this, though, not have any provision for it to revert to the standard rate?
The current law has the rate staying the same the whole time. But the version that you all looked at last time and this version both have the reverting to the standard rate.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we had a step down last time we talked. That year one would be the high, then we cut it down a little bit. Then in year 3, it would be normal. I think this still meets the spirit of our discussion we had last month, where we just want to keep the cost to a minimum for the owners going forward.
So I just shared the last time's version and then how you all voted to do it. So theirs was 125 and then essentially returning to normal. Your suggestion was 125 for the first year, 75 for the second. Does that still say 75? I think that should say 25. No, what's half of 75? That'd be 35.
Well, it's not really half.
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe no, you kept it that same rate, I guess. And then it returns to normal. And then for the $100 one, 100, then 50, then 25.
Yeah.
Were your suggestions. And so what they've done is just opted to keep it their original proposed amendment.
I'm not sure. I mean, given the other things we have to debate, I'm not sure I want to spend too much time on this. If they want to, I can live with the language as written.
I'm comfortable. I make a motion. We accept the section as written.
If I'm not mistaken, I think part of our discussion and reasoning behind the fee schedule was the added cost for animal control to continue to do their checkups on the animal through those couple of years.
I believe
that's correct. Yeah. I believe we did say that, but the spirit of the discussion, as I recall, was just to get that fee down as reasonable as possible for the owners going forward. And, I think this accomplishes the same thing.
And I think I was asked last time if this would have any impact on our funding, and all of our intake of funds goes into the general fund. So I don't foresee a change on that. Does Dr. Hemmer have a second for his motion to accept the proposed changes to 124702C3?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Right. Next, again, this is a new section. You all did not see this last time. And this is one that I have really pushed for and been pushing for. because the state code made changes to how animals and appeals for animals that are seized due to criminal neglect or abuse. The state has made changes to the process on that in effort to expedite things, because we have animals that are being held for a very, very long time still. And what this would do would make it, we would adopt a lot of the ways that the state handles it now, but we would continue to funnel these through our process as opposed to having them go through the district court, which can take longer. So you would still hear petitions for return of animals, but this would require that essentially, if we are going to, if the owner's saying I want the animals back, that they are going to have to upfront continue to pay for us to house and care for the animals. Because right now we house and care for the animals for the duration of the process, including the criminal case, oftentimes, and the owner has to put nothing forward. So in the end, they may be found guilty, and they may not get their animals back, but also the animals will have had to stay in our care and custody for that duration, slowing their process to recovery, and in a lot of our opinions, causing more harm to the victims in this situation.
I have a question.
Okay.
I initially, when I read this, I mean, like the note that I scribbled on here was like, wow. And that just, I wrote wow, because it seemed punitive, but punitive in advance because it was prior to adjudication. And that concerned me. However, I see that in 10, they have the
right. This adopts essentially the state's process.
Right. So it can go back and be the costs of care. However, that they can go back and have it reviewed. I guess my only concern in all of this is if you have a low income family that couldn't possibly front these costs, do they then have to make the decision ahead of just to give their animal up, even though like a review of the facts might say they're of them be on appeal, but they're going to be forced to give it up because they can't pay these costs in advance?
Yes. Essentially, yes. But keep in mind, we just had animals that were here for, let me give you the date.
Those Rottweilers, Robin.
Well, the Rottweilers aren't our longest.
Wow. That was long.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not disputing the need for the section. I guess I just would.
The benefit, and keep in mind that our fees, our board and things like that are a lot lower than what some of the state, other counties and other jurisdictions are. We charge $5 a day board, and many are just $15 a day board. And the cost of owning an animal, like if you truly cannot afford to pay for the minimal cost, which the first month it would be a higher fee because we're going to have to, again, we're seizing these animals because we have probable cause, we've gotten a warrant or had exigent circumstances. We've had to take these animals to a veterinarian or have a veterinarian come out and assess them. They've had to get additional treatment. That is necessary veterinary care. And if you can't afford that, then it would be in the animal's best interest for you to surrender the animal so that the animal can continue to get the care that it needs.
Well, I think that's a pretty broad stroke to be painting this with. And the reason I'm saying that is because, like, my animals here at the house, I get it. There's a cost that's built into my owning them. But like their shelter cost is my mortgage. It's factored in that way. But when you come at me and say I need to pay an additional $450 a month, because that's $15 a day, times 30, I might not be, if I'm a low income pet owner, I might be able to pay my mortgage this month, but I might not be able to pay my mortgage plus a boarding fee. That doesn't mean I can't afford my animal. I guess I hate it. I don't know. I'm a little concerned with it. I'm sorry, Jackie. Go ahead. I don't mean to.
Robin, could the section 124504C2, where we've given,
If we're going back,
yep, no, we're going, in that section, we've given you the ability to waive fees. Would that be applicable? Or could it be? In a case like what Jennifer was referring to?
Because this could essentially restrict anybody on a fixed income. So we'd have
Could
to
be
tell any elderly
discriminatory.
person on Social Security, anybody that's on disability, that you are per se too poor to own an animal.
Well, and I will tell you that the state labored over this for it took several years to get the most recent bill passed, which passed last year, I believe.
yeah, but it did pass. So,
Yeah,
you know, we're at, and again, we're mirroring what the state had
right.
recommended. So some
But
of
as
our
you said, the
discussion
county
here,
fees are lower than the state, so this
Right.
would be an advantage to the pet owner. But again, with that new section, could it be applied?
well, that section is for redemption of the animals, though. This isn't for redemption. This is for the keeping of the animals.
Thank you.
I
Well, not to
just-
get into the not to get into the semantics, Robin, but if I'm redeeming my seized or surrendered animal out of your care, is not the boarding fees and the care fees going to be included as part of the redemption fees?
Well, if they went through the criminal process, at least the way it's written, and I hope Curran is listening right now, if they went through the criminal process and they were found not guilty criminally, then no, we wouldn't be charging those things.
Okay.
And
I'm
there
sorry,
we
say that
have
again?
the opportunity to waive fees. So if they were found not guilty in the criminal process, they wouldn't be being then charged redemption fees.
So they wouldn't pay any of these care fees, correct?
Well,
In that scenario,
they would have
they would be entitled to a refund then.
but then we would refund them, right? If you look at the last
Okay.
line in this, line 11,
Got it.
if they were essentially, we would have to return all or a portion of the cost of care.
Okay.
But they would still have to pay in it. So basically, if you're on a fixed income, if you're elderly and your only income is Social Security, if you can't front these fees, then you get no appeal, basically, because you have to make the decision up front to pay. And if you can't cover those costs, then in advance, then you can't appeal. That's my concern, that you're putting a price. This is essentially puts a price on the appeals process that eliminates somebody's due process. Yes, Jackie?
But that's in the state code as it is now.
Right. So
we're not, Anne Arundel County is not doing something more. We're actually speeding the process and making things faster for that owner.
right.
Does this section?
So we're obligated to the state as it is. But if we pass this, then we go by our code rather than the state.
Does this mirror the state code?
Except that it puts it through our county process. So it comes to commission and board of appeals, which is much faster than the district court process. So
Okay.
Marsala is one of the dogs that was recently here. And Jennifer, you're, I'm sure, familiar with the criminal process. After postponement, after postponement, after postponement, the case took forever to get to adjudication. Marsala was here for 917 days.
Wow.
Wow.
I
And
just want to clarify something that Robin said, that the
Yeah.
state code does require that on acquittal, the reasonable cost of care that had been paid is refunded.
Right,
This bill does not do that.
but
This bill has, if a court orders it, then that is refunded, but that's based on a court ordering the refund. That's not automatic with.
Automatic.
Now, whether or not the state's automatic provision would apply is a decision that would be made at the time that this issue arises. That's not a function of this bill or something that's considered in this bill, but this bill is, it would be if a court ordered that. So if there was if someone filed a action in district court to get some of the fees returned after an acquittal or something like that, and a court ordered it, then that would be where that comes in. But this wouldn't be automatic with an acquittal.
But a judge could order it right at the time of acquittal.
I would disagree with that in the criminal case because the county's not party to the criminal case. So I don't know that a judge would be able to order the county to pay monies that, when the county, it's between the state and the defendant at that point. It's not a county issue. So I don't know that they would be able to order us to pay money as part of the judgment of the criminal case. I think that would be something that have to be collateral to the criminal case through a civil action. But we would have to see what happens if a judge does order that, or if that's requested of a judge of the criminal case and where that goes. Because again, I'm not even sure how many times this has been used by the state, but this would all be kind of new ground for the county.
Corinne, can I ask a question? Under subpart 10, where it says the owner may request a review of the costs of care imposed under the subsection as part of any petition filed. So does that mean, like, if I'm elderly, I'm on Social Security, and I don't think, I'm fine, I want to appeal this, but I don't have the money to front the cost. At the same time that I file the appeal, can I file a request to review the costs? And if so, does that stay them while that review is underway?
Logistically, I don't think it would work that you'd be able to appeal as soon as you filed the petition. But that would simply be because I'm not sure when the determination of the cost would be provided to the owner. I don't know if that will happen when Animal Care and Control sends out the notice of the seizure, or if kind of the process would go, Animal Care and Control seizes the animal, provides the notice of the seizure, waits for the petition to be filed, and then provides the summary of the cost, because those costs only arise while that petition's pending and while the criminal cases and related actions are pending. So I don't know kind of how the timeline would work, but with that, once they've received the documentation relating to what the costs are, I believe that under 10, I think they would have the ability to request a review of the costs. I don't think that it would automatically stay any required payments because that's not listed in that section.
Hey, Corinne, if you look at subsection 4, so if I'm reading this right, if they take an animal or it gets surrendered, Animal Care and Control is 5 days to give them a notice of what the cost is for a 30-day stay. Am I reading that correctly?
They have 5 days to pay it, is what I'm reading.
That's the next one. They have 5 days to pay it, but they have to give notice within 5 days. Is that, or am I misreading it? Of a notice shall pay. Okay. Yeah, I'm misreading it. My bad. Sorry.
I pulled up just for frame of reference, I don't know if anybody here has seen it. The 10.6.15.1 petition for cost of care of a seized animal, in the state code, just so that everyone can have a little bit more of a reference, to when I say that we're mirroring very similarly, the state code.
Okay, right away I have a question because under G1I, it says not later than 5 days after the conclusion of a hearing. So, but I'm reading our code as that these costs are to be paid in advance before we even get to a hearing.
Current, I don't know if you or who from Office of Law did the drafting of the verbiage.
And I guess, and that's my entire concern with the whole thing. Not that they shouldn't be paying the costs, but if you make them pay the costs in advance before we ever get to a hearing, then some people might forego the hearing simply because they couldn't afford it. And until we have a hearing, we don't know if the seizure was justified. That's our job to determine, at least initially. So you could be forcing them to give up the animal because they can't front the cost before an adjudication is made. That, I guess that was, the timing was my concern.
All right, that
But
makes
it's in
sense
here.
now, Jennifer, thank you. So the question is, where is the best spot to change it? Or to make recommendation of a change, I guess I should say.
Well, if we are mirroring this after the state, then I guess
Maybe it would be simple to just add another section in there that just says, if the owner can provide reasonable grounds that they not pay, they've only got one source of income, they're low income, that the county can waive those fees until adjudication. Maybe that may be just the simplest way to fix this, Jennifer. Thoughts?
I was thinking it looks like maybe under 4, within 5 days of the date of a notice issued under this section, it currently says the owner shall pay, blah, blah, blah. But if you said, unless pending appeal or something like that.
Well, I just took a little break and I'm just now coming back. And I was going to try to say this before I did that, but I think in 12.4.504, we're talking about shelter fees under normal conditions where somebody gets a citation or a PDO, dangerous order, whatever. In 12.4.901, we're talking about the animal being seized or surrendered because of alleged cruelty or another reason. So I think we're talking about two different things, if I'm not mistaken. So this is only if it's been seized or surrendered due to cruelty under the heading of 12.4.901.
Right.
And under normal conditions, then 12.4.504 would apply.
Right, we're only talking about animals that have been seized for neglect or cruelty in this section.
Well,
but Jennifer's point is still valid, whether
Right.
it was a surrender for anything else or a surrender or seize for cruelty. That, you know, how do we reasonably address people that are of low means or on fixed income in this section. I mean, Jennifer's got a legitimate point. I mean, I see where she's coming from. Short of just adding another section in there that, you know, you give good cause why you can't pay. I don't know how else to address it. Jackie?
Could verbiage be added that would give animal control the ability to set up a payment schedule with the folks rather than them having to pay it all up front?
Well, this does, it does it in 30-day increments, essentially.
Okay, but still, with agreeing with Jennifer, this could be a real concern for even the average person.
But I think Jennifer's point was not the cost in and of themselves. It was the payment of the cost prior to getting to the commission.
Right. It would prevent people from even exercising their right to appeal. And that's my concern. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the cost could be prohibited under all circumstances, but if the cost has to be upfront, then people are just going to throw their might throw their hands up and say, I'm just going to give up my animal, even though they might legitimately have a case. Maybe the seizure wasn't warranted. I mean, we don't know yet because the adjudication hasn't taken place.
So that's why I'm asking if there could be, if animal control could have the ability to set up a payment schedule so that it would break it up into smaller increments.
But I don't think that would resolve Jennifer's issue, because that would still be requiring that something be paid. And I think what she's suggesting is that, similar to the state, we amend this to have something of after the conclusion of, and you could be clear, the commission hearing, right? Maybe not all the hearings, because we know it takes a while to get to Board of Appeals and then Circuit Court if they use all of them, but that if appealed, no fees are expected prior to the Animal Matters Commission hearing, and fees shall begin within 5 days of the commission hearing.
I think that's a reasonable approach, Robin, because the problems we've had with these cases, if my memory serves, has not been the time from intake to commission hearing. The time's been from commission hearing to the end of the appeal process.
Right.
And so I think that may satisfy Jennifer if we can slip in something along the lines of what you just said, because that's where animal control is getting clipped from a financial perspective, is from our hearing decision to we get through the appeals process, whatever that is, whether it's criminal or not. Yeah. But you're right.
Yeah,
exactly. So maybe Robin's onto something there that would probably satisfy Jennifer's concern.
And I also, just in case anybody missed it, I just want to point out, and I think Dr. Hemmer's idea is an excellent idea, but if you look at 7, if 7 says the minute they miss a payment, the very next day, the animal becomes the property of the county and they can do whatever they want with it. So before we've ever decided if their case has any merit or not, we've already removed the animal because they've missed a payment.
Yeah, but we fix that if we put something in like Robin was just talking about, that there's no fees until we go through and Robin said we could say the commission hearing. So, but I think that's probably the way to go with this, because that would fix that problem too. That they're not going to be behind if they don't have to pay anything. But once we decide where they're at, that's when the clock starts in terms of making payments.
right. So you could amend number 1, and I'm just kind of speaking out loud here, right? To, if an owner files a petition under subsection F, no fees shall be collected until after a recommendation or decision has been rendered by the Animal Matters Commission. And depending on how detailed you want it to get, you could say upholding the seizure, or, and then all costs from there must be paid within 5 days for that first month, and so on, so on.
Yeah,
if you worded it like that, that would, and we can do that. I'm okay with that. But you realize if you word it like you just said, that means there is no charge for the time the animals
until commission.
No, but what you just said, the way you just said it, the fees wouldn't begin, if they don't begin to accrue till after commission, then you can't charge them from the time of seizure till commission.
Oh, I don't think I said begin to accrue. If I did, I misspoke. Because one of the state's priorities was the first day that we have animals, that first 24 hours on animal cruelty cases is often the most expensive time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe someone that's a lawyer could do a better job of drafting the language for how to say that essentially they would not have to actually pay until after commission.
Right. I think
and that
all
the
costs
billing-
beginning on the date of the animal was seized is fine. I think it's 4 where you make the change that instead of it being within 5 days of the date of the notice, it's within 5 days of the date of any of the notice or the commission hearing, whichever is later. Because some people may not opt for, some people may not opt for a hearing, may just accept the fate and not appeal it.
And then we have others that'll push for getting them bumped a month, the postponements. That's the other potential headache with this, is that if we start getting hit with a bunch of postponements like we have been on these cases, we've got to have something where animal control can make the collection of the fees retroactive to the day of seizure.
I think 1 says that all costs of care begin on the date the animal was seized. That's not within
Yep.
question. It's
Yep.
when payment is due.
Good point, Jennifer.
So Jennifer, I want to try to read back your suggestion. Within 5 days of the date of a notice issued under this section, or within 5 days of a commission hearing, if appeal is filed, the owner shall pay the estimated costs of care for the animal for a 30-day period.
Does that sound right? Curran, do you see any issue with what I just suggested?
Curran, you still there?
I would probably recommend that a more kind of less technical recommendation be made by the commission, and then the specific drafting can go into this, because saying that it has to be paid within 5 days when you have 10 days to file the petition, but if you don't file the petition within 10 days, then the animal is deemed unwanted or unredeemed and becomes property of the county. So there is no, I'm just going to accept it and pay. You have to file the petition, or that animal is forfeit, is my understanding. I would also probably say that it would be easier to add in 124901H, which is where the chief is making a determination on whether the seizure is appropriate and necessary, and somehow using that as part of the starting point for the payments would probably make the most sense from a drafting perspective. But again, I think if the commission just wants to kind of forward the principle that they want to have enshrined into this legislation, I think that that's something that can then be handled when you're looking at the whole section rather than just trying to fix the specific sections that are in front of you.
So if I understand you correctly, Curran, your suggestion would be that someone one of the members of the commission make a motion that feedback be provided to the administration to add a clear mechanism that would not require an owner to pay prior to the seizure being deemed warranted.
Yeah, I think that would make
That's what
sense.
they
I
want.
think then the drafting can go forward to figure out how best to incorporate that, if that's what is determined by the council and the executive's office.
Yeah, I'm good with, let the pros do it, because I'm not any good at drafting legislation. I just don't, I'd hate to see these fees be an access to justice issue, you know, like, oh, I'm too poor to
Yeah.
get justice for my animal. And that's what I'm seeing here, the way this is written.
Yeah, I understand that.
Well, I make a motion that we let Robin, that we have Robin send what she just said to the back to the county executive for their comment and resolution.
Okay, I wrote it down, so I'll consider that a Dr. Hemmer. Any second for Dr. Hemmer?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay.
And then could we also ask for something that would allow animal control to set up a payment fee rather than them having to pay the full bulk of the 30 days, which could again hamper them from being able to participate and get their animal back?
Okay, so that's a motion to suggest consideration for payment plan.
Yes.
Right. To allow animal
Right.
control to establish the plan.
Yes, to allow animal control to establish the payment plan.
Okay, does she have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? All right, Ed, are you choosing to abstain or are you voting against?
I'm kind of against that. I think it takes the power away from what they're doing here with the with the seizure. If it's warranted, and the payment's already been delayed, once that decision's been made, I think they need to put it up.
Okay.
Put up or shut up. That's might be a little harsh, but we're talking about cruelty here.
Okay. And then this will be our last section before we go back to the one that we were looking for clarification on. So we're not quite done. It's our almost the last section, which is the 124912, which would allow animal care and control to waive adoption fees or the cost of spaying or neutering upon good cause or is deemed appropriate.
I'm okay with that.
Can I just ask a silly question?
Yeah.
What, I understand the adoption fees, forget, I guess, but we just got done saying, or there was a comment made during the last discussion that if you can't afford the $15 a day, then you probably shouldn't have the animal. And I'm looking at this, under any other circumstances, I would have just rubber stamped that and said, yeah, this is a great idea. But yet, under what circumstance would we say that somebody who couldn't afford to spay or neuter their animal should have an animal? If we're going to say under the,
It's not a matter of couldn't afford. It's a matter of we have to compete with other shelters for people looking for homes. And
okay,
being able to
Yeah,
say
it's throughput.
animals are free
Right.
helps with that. Whatever we can do to get people in the door to take animals home.
Yeah.
And we
Gotcha.
see
Okay.
we see ads periodically of different shelters waiving their adoption fees for a special period of time just as a promotion because they're terribly full and need to move animals
actually, it wasn't
out.
the adoption fees. I guess I just, listening to what I just heard in the last one, I'm like, well, if they
Yeah.
can't afford $15 a day, but yet you're telling me it's okay if they can't afford a spay or neuter. But no,
I
I'm good
get
with
that
it the way
too.
it is.
So is there a motion?
I make a motion, we accept that section as written.
Second. I'll second.
124912 subsection E.
Is that Brienne's a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, so then we need to go back to 124402 D2. And hopefully Curran's had an opportunity to dig a little bit more into that one for us.
When I went back and looked, it was our suggestion to add the previously, wasn't it?
No, previously was theirs. Hang on, I can pull up the meeting minutes again.
That's what I'm looking at
Share screen.
Oh, okay, I see.
Hopefully that's sharing the right screen. Right screen.
Right. Okay, so it was the addition of previously. Gotcha.
Now hopefully that shows it better.
Based on a determination beyond a reasonable doubt. That would be in keeping with our previous motion that was accepted.
So this one is a two-parter. It has the previously, which last time you all said no position and requested clarification on that word. And then the next part of it, I think we did it for two at the same time, was the removal of the specifics on, this has the evidence. So we did it for both of them, that your suggestion was to strike the evidentiary requirements. So this one is a two-parter. It has that addition of the word previously, and then it also has whether or not you all would like to make a comment again on the level or the types of evidence required.
As I said, I think in keeping with what we had before, is based on testimony from an eyewitness. Somehow or another put in either also at the beginning or erase the whole thing and put in a determination beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, we already have that. That's in a higher section.
Right, that's in D.
That's in D. This is now we're just at the D.
Oh. Okay, so here, okay, I'm sorry. What I meant to say is by preponderance of the evidence or clear and convincing evidence, because we're talking about a previous determination of dangerous or potentially dangerous.
So my understanding is the previous determinations, and Curran, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. The way this is drafted is if it previously had either of those are done, the appeals are done on those, except for reconsideration if that's added. And then now another incident happened. This is adding that section that says that it would require either eyewitness testimony or authenticated digital evidence. So you all recommended striking that from D1 because you felt like raising the bar to beyond a reasonable doubt was sufficient. And in number 2, it brings back in that same specification on the requirement of what type of evidence may or may not be acceptable.
Well, you're not going to do that. That's what I'm saying. You're not going to. I think it should be stricken because we've already, and they have already put in there that it's not based on testimony. If it's previous, when potentially dangerous or dangerous, it's not based on testimony from an eyewitness to the events. It's based on a preponderance of the evidence or by clear and convincing evidence. They already have it in here. For those.
No. But now what this is saying, okay, so the potentially dangerous or dangerous was already determined. But now if the dog or the animal, any animal engages in another incident that constitutes a public safety threat, but that is the way the language exists already.
Right. The only addition
There's no new
here are the previously and the based on testimony, which last time what you all recommended was taking no position on the word previously and taking the position that based on testimony from an eyewitness to the event supporting the designation or through authenticated digital evidence showing the event supporting the designation, that be stricken. That was the motion that you all made last time. So the question is, this time, do you want to handle it the same way? Would you like to go a different direction?
I'm good with striking that. I think we already discussed that today. I think all of us kind of agree that limiting the evidence like that is unnecessary, especially when we're elevating the standard. I was confused last time on the addition of previously, and that's why I was like, I needed more explanation, but I don't know, like that light bulb has gone off. That previously is needed to avoid the redundancy that Dr. Hemmer and I both mentioned last time. If you don't have that in there, the sections are redundant. So I seem to understand why they put that previously in there, and I would be in favor of keeping it as written.
So maybe the new motion, does someone want to try making a new motion? Or do you want?
I make a motion, we accept that subsection 2, we keep the word previously is in there, and we strike the words beginning with based on testimony to the end of that paragraph, like we discussed.
I'll second.
Wyatt? Well, once again, I'm going back to what we're talking about here is I'm okay with the previous, but then when we get down there, we're talking about what's in front of us now, and that should be beyond a reasonable doubt.
I think what Ed is maybe trying to say is that rather than just striking that we once again reiterate that the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what I'm understanding, Ed?
Yes, that's kind of where I'm going, so that it flows. So we make this recommendation, it flows. And now that I see what the picture is, it has to have a previous determination of potentially dangerous or dangerous, boom, period. And then now we got a second incident above that previous incident that should be based on a determination beyond a reasonable doubt, which goes back to part D.
Right. I think it's covered in D. So D and the beyond a reasonable doubt will apply to both D1 and D2 and D3 and D4. It'll apply to everything in D.
Okay.
Right,
It might not be worth repeating. I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of sending it back to the council instead of just striking it, having something to put in there,
Yeah, maybe.
That's just my thought.
Maybe we should just make a comment then that we believe that beyond a reasonable doubt, should suffice. I mean, that we don't need that extra. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, otherwise, I like the motion on the table. I mean, I think that's fine.
Because if we do that, if we do what Ed is suggesting, aren't we then elevating the standard of evidence for public safety threat to beyond a reasonable doubt? Because this section talks about somebody that's already been adjudicated dangerous or potentially dangerous, but then engages a second incident that constitutes a public safety threat.
Which
and
may not
our
be the
intention,
level of vicious.
right? So our intention is not to elevate the standard of evidence required for public safety threat. And I think once we add that in there, we're doing that.
It's already in there.
No, it's in the previous. This is
No, they're coming before
for vicious. For
Yeah.
vicious.
Correct. That's
It's
what
in
they're
there, but this is
facing.
not.
That's what they're facing, a charge of vicious. And they've already had a previous potentially dangerous or dangerous.
Which is why they're
Right.
vicious, because they already had something and something else happened.
So if they're looking at vicious, it already says that it should be a determination beyond a reasonable doubt. Even though number one now gets into based on testimony from evidence of supporting the designation, I do like the fact that it's got in Part D, determination beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right, and that covers the rest of it, because this is a subsection of D. And I think to be consistent, because we voted to strike the based on testimony line from 1, that we do the same thing in 2.
It's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, and I think our reasoning for that was so not to put restrictions on the type of evidence.
Isn't that what the motion on the
Right.
table is right now?
I
The
think
motion
so.
on the table right now that was made by Hemmer and seconded by Brienza was keep previously and strike based on all the way to the end of that sentence in 12.4.402 D2.
So either that, or we're arguing, or we're discussing, I should say, adding something else there at the end to reiterate that it should just be beyond reasonable doubt, and that's what we're.
It already exists in D, so.
Right. So basically, the motion on the table is what we're looking at.
Why don't we go forward with Dr. Hemmer's motion? It was seconded, properly seconded. All in favor? Okay.
I guess my one question then to the group, so that these can be official before the February hearing, do you want to take a break and then come back and I can try and draft the meeting minutes while you're taking a break?
That sounds reasonable.
Would that
Yeah,
be,
I'm okay with that.
Is that okay with everyone?
do you want to say,
It's fine with me.
come back at 1 o'clock? Or do you want shorter? What do you all want?
Well, are you gonna,
I'm gonna sit here and work on them right away.
We shoot for
And
1:30.
then I can email them out.
How
What was
much
that,
time
for
do you need,
1:30?
Robin?
It depends on how much I have to fight with this, but I'm gonna use last time's as a base, so I think I can be reasonably quick about it.
It's almost noon now, so you're comfortable with 1?
I'm comfortable with 1, although I did hear somebody say 1:30, if that's better.
It would be, I serve at the pleasure of the commission. If 1 o'clock is agreed, we'll do 1 o'clock, but if we could do 1:30, that would be better for me personally. It's a personal request.
How about 1:15?
I can make that happen.
Okay.
In the middle, 1:15, okay with everybody? We'll take a break and resume then.
Same webinar number?
Same webinar. I think I'm just gonna leave it open and mute myself. You all can.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Just video and mute.
We'll do that.
Thank you, everybody, for that personal accommodation.
See you at 1:15.
Thank you, everybody. See you at 1:15. All right, looks like it's 1:15. For those that are here, I did add 2 different drafts into the drive because I wasn't sure how best to do this when I started looking at last times. And so within those, I did them 2 different ways. One way is I just kind of hit upon what we discussed today. That is draft 1. And then option 2 is I took last time's and modified it to add things like we appreciate that the administration took into consideration our concerns or incorporated our concerns or that kind of thing. So that one's longer. So I didn't know if you all had a general preference. And whichever way you want to go, I'm happy to do share screen. However is needed. Uh-oh, it looks like Jackie might be having trouble, so hang on one second. I have to go to the other office to get her added back on. I'll be right back. Hopefully that's going to get Jackie back up here with us. Yeah. Great. Okay, so any preference which way we look at this, short or long?
Perhaps we should go with the long version.
Okay, so we'll do share screen on the long version. I have not filled in the end time because we will have to agree to fill that in. And I need to fix this. See it, so I'm gonna fix it now. Okay, so hopefully you all are seeing my screen now. So we have that we started at 9:53. We took a break from our morning session at 11:53, and whatever time this ends, I can fill in the end time. We have that we approved the meeting visit minutes draft 2. And that was unanimous. If I'm going too fast, feel free to let me know. We heard the citation case for Charlie Brown. The recommendation was to uphold the citation or the citation in its entirety. That was unanimous. Also made note that it was discussed that a potentially dangerous order would have been appropriate and that you'd support the issuance of a letter to the owner that Charlie Brown is not to return to Anne Arundel County. Next, again, short version. I just made note here quickly that you all appreciated that they took that into consideration for both of those two. No voting or anything because we didn't have to vote because they had incorporated your recommendations. Next one is the first time in the current proposed legislation that it references the need for eyewitness testimony or video. And the recommendation was to strike, again, that specificity in the type of evidence required. And that was unanimous. And then I made notes that it was discussed that increasing the standards of proof, that this should be sufficient and the types of evidence required should not be limited. I noted Commission Member Brienza commented that circumstantial evidence can be overwhelming, and that Commission Member Bergia commented that circumstantial evidence can be sufficient to put a person to death. Then 12-402 D2, this is the one that adds the word previously and also added the specificity in the types of evidence. Dr. Hemmer made a motion to support the addition of previously, but recommends striking anything beyond based on testimony moving forward to the end. So that addition, that was also unanimous. I noted that the discussion for 12-402-1 is the reason for the recommendation for striking the second part of the proposed addition. Upon discussion, the commission agrees the addition of the word previously is beneficial. Then for 12.4.402E, this was one that was discussed last time, but we did not discuss today because the modification was supported last time and continue to be supportive. No voting. The next one is the replacement of agency. I want to point out that I don't think that we discussed that little piece of change. I think last time they had it as appellant, not agency. But replacement of the word agency and removal of appellant and replacement of preponderance of evidence with the standards set forth in 12.4.402. So it would cover the different levels of burden of proof for each of the different designations. And I added that the commission appreciates the administration's incorporation of our suggestions. And then number 7 was the addition of the reconsideration section. I noted that you all support the addition, but recommend modifying the section label to reconsideration of conditions. And that was unanimous, and also added that you appreciate the incorporation of your previous suggestions. The next one is the licensing section, where it has the PDO and DO fees reverting to the standard rates at the second year, and noted that you support this amendment as written. And that you discussed that though this differs from your previous recommendations, the ultimate intent is to save, or is the same, and that you support it. And that was again unanimous. Then we have the addition of the verbiage for 12.4.901D and 12.4.901I, including all of 1 through 11. So this is that cruelty section. And it says that you support the concept, however, suggests the county considers adding a mechanism to not require any payment until the Animal Matters Commission has deemed the seizure appropriate. And that was unanimous. I don't know, would you all like me to add a note here that regarding the discussion of why you want to make this suggestion, or do you just want to leave it the way it is?
Well, are we
Might
going?
be worthwhile. It might be worthwhile to note that since a lot of this language mirrors the state statute, that the state, and we don't have the statute up any further, but there was actually a section in the state statute that was slightly different, and that provided a mechanism so that folks wouldn't be necessarily shut out of the appeal based on cost. And I don't remember what that section said, but I remember seeing that there was a section in the state statute.
The state statute had that the payments would start after the hearing. So what I did was, since a lot of this language mirrors the state statute, which doesn't require payment until after a hearing, we suggest similar.
Yes, but making sure it's clear that it's a commission hearing and not a court hearing, which then would put you back in the same position and problem you had before.
Awesome. How's that? You don't see that? Do I need to make this bigger? Get better for you. Is that better?
Robin, are these, I guess they're minutes. Are they going to be sent to the council with a kind of like a cover letter, or are they just going to be by themselves?
If you all would like me to draft a cover letter, I can certainly do that.
Yeah, just a short one. maybe, I mean, we don't want to be redundant, but just maybe a short letter telling them, and perhaps you could insert the reasons for the additional suggestions.
The next section was the suggestion that we, again, support the concept, but suggest that the county considers giving animal care and control the ability to establish a payment plan rather than requiring a lump sum. And we had one person opposed and the rest were for this. Next, we have the addition of the ability to waive adoption fees or spaying or neutering fees. And this was support the proposed amendment, and that was unanimous. Next, Animal Matters Commission hearing 2/5/24. And then adjournment, I just left it the same as last time. I figured you all can either go with it or not. I guess the next question is, since Ed has suggested a letter, do you all want me to draft that real quick and take another break?
My reasoning for that is you did bring up a good point as to why we especially on the payment methods and things like that. I think that needs to be noted to the council as the reasons why we're suggesting that, for the reasons that Jackie had brought up and the reasons why she made those suggestions. I think that needs to be inserted. Maybe not so much on the other ones, but at least on that one, they need to understand why that payment is being asked to be retroactive to the commission's assessment. I really don't think we need to explain the other parts as much as that.
I think Jennifer had the concern mostly that we agreed with, the concern that people would not be able to follow through with wanting to get their animal back because of the cost. And then my suggestion had been about the being able to create the payment schedule. And same idea, just to be able to spread that payment out so that people could follow through.
I just added into that comment section. Hang on, I'll share again. See if we can maybe incorporate it there. Added, this is due to concern that paying upfront would deter appeals by owners.
Okay.
I mean, that is our opportunity to do those things. However, I do think the suggestion of, and I can work on the formatting later, but is this still sharing? Can you all see that right now?
Yes.
So don't mind that this is not at all in proper letter format. This is just a Word document.
And I know we could probably do this to death, but and it might have something to do with seeing all the ASPCA commercials with the abused animals out in the snow and chained to chained to pallets and things of that nature. But there is no provision in the cruelty for an owner that has a previous. just noted. I mean, we have it for the animal who is up against a vicious, to have a previous assessment of dangerous or potentially dangerous. But in my opinion, that's just me. My heart goes out to these abused animals a lot, and I think maybe in the future that the council needs to take a look at owners that are repetitive, that have been there previously on a cruelty matter. Oh, yeah. I don't think that is even addressed in the what do you call it, the irresponsible owner, because I think that's just if they're at large, if I'm not mistaken.
That is a section of the law that I have suggested tweaks to. It has not made it into an official proposed bill yet.
Oh, okay.
The public safety stuff is in there as a part of it. The issue that we've been running into in terms of putting it to use relates specifically to it requires that they have a guilty finding, and we're running into the problem of if we impound a stray animal, we impound a stray animal, we impound a stray animal, and whether or not we've issued citations for those or not, the citations for each of those hasn't made it through the adjudication process. So we haven't been able to use that because by the time we're coming up on third or fourth impound, sometimes the animal is already being hit by a car or being involved in a public safety incident because we weren't able to take action sooner. And I know I'm doing a lot of flipping back and forth, but I hope it'll make sense to you. I've done a lot of testimony at the state level, and so I've kind of drafted the verbiage part on this similarly so that we don't have to go into everything, and I can fix caps and all that kind of stuff. But I figured if we can get agreement on the concept of what's the meat of the letter, then maybe we can get approval to send it, get you all to vote on it, and then just say that I will handle the details of the look, layout, etc. So what I've done, which is similar to how I've handled state bills in the past, is that we support the bill, but with the following amendments, and then break down what those amendments are. So for the evidentiary requirements, striking the piece about the eyewitness testimony and the digital testimony, both for 12.4 402 D1 and for 12.4 402 D2, but for D2 supporting the previously. So I guess I could just remove, yeah, I can just combine those, can't I? Shorter, just striking the evidentiary requirements. And if you all like, I can copy what those specifically were so that there's no room for And then this has for 12.4.403, support the addition, but recommend changing the section label to reconsideration of conditions. And then for 12.4.901D and 12.4.901I, suggesting that the county consider adding a mechanism to not require payment until the Animal Matters Commission has deemed the seizure appropriate. And then again, for those same sections, addition of verbiage to, let's see here. Again, supporting the concept, but suggesting that animal care and control have the ability to establish a payment plan rather than requiring a lump sum. So this draft generally says, hey, we like it, but there's a few sticking points that we'd like to see reworked. And here's what they were.
Good.
I'm happy to modify any language here. As you all can see, I threw this together very, very quickly.
That's all I think that, you know, I mean, if they really have questions, they can watch this.
I mean, I can add a note that says, if you'd like to see our deliberations, you can watch the commission hearings on such and such a dates.
There you go.
I can find whatever the date was back in 2022. It might take me a minute. Roll force. Oh, and for anyone that is interested in seeing those are here. I know we've already had a long meeting, so you may not be interested in seeing them. Discuss proposed legislation. Those were much shorter. But it just goes to show that you all have been reviewing these recommended changes for some time.
I think that'll serve its purpose.
Again, still formatting, but I want to get the meat to you all to see, to say, hey, it's good before I finalize it and have Ed sign it when he comes in.
Very good.
Let me know if any of y'all want more time to read this, if you want me to.
No, I don't have any changes.
It looks good, Robin.
Okay, so then it looks like then we're gonna have two things to vote on. I'm gonna add to this. Because it wasn't long enough yet.
Bless you.
Excuse me, sorry. To the mute time.
This in the other business, maybe?
And while Robin's doing that, I'd just like to inform everybody that ironically, the hearing on this matter is the night of our next meeting.
Yeah.
February 5th and February 5th.
Does anyone want to make a motion to support the drafted letter?
I'll make a motion to support the drafted letter.
All right,
I second it.
Go ahead.
all in favor?
Okay, then.
So then I guess we need a motion to approve these meeting minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the January 8th, 2024 meeting.
I'll second that.
Favor?
I'm changing as we go, but I'm just opening. No.
Robin, thanks for all your support and work.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you all for your support and work. It's right in here. Okay, remind me who, Brianza made the motion. Berja, you seconded?
Correct.
Oh, you guys made it super easy on me. Thank you. That was the same as earlier. Okay, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
We'll make that motion to adjourn.
No, I want to stay. I want to stay all day. I think I'm the only one getting paid on this deal. I'm the only one that's actually at work doing this. So
Was the second on that Dr. Hemmer?
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
all in favor? Okay, thank you all for your help and your work. I appreciate everything you've done.
thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, everyone.